somewhat clean, you probably are pretty satisfied with that. Now, a few injuries, a few things we got to get to, a few things that the Utes will need to address. But as you mentioned, 49-0, 49-0, we're not going to complain too much about that, although for the sake of radio, maybe a few nitpicking here and there.
You should know that every time you say film or tape, I get chills.
Right. That's the goal. That's the point.
But you know me. You know me. You know what gets me off. You know what gets me going, and that's film. That's all 22. That's cutting it up. That's eating it. That's spitting it back out, cutting it up again, eating it, and then coming to conclusions.
Now,
you know me.
Have you rewatched it yet?
How many times? At least twice, and rewatched it on my phone on the drive up. Not safe, but that's how dedicated I am to the job.
Fair enough. All right. I'm impressed.
Eric Weddle's our first guest right out of the gates on a Friday. I did not watch it on my phone on the way up. Okay, so don't tweet at me. Don't send me DMs. But before we get to EWED on this beautiful Friday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too, downtown Beer Bar, right downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. If you're looking for a place to watch all the college football and the RSL action this weekend, check out our good friends at Beer Bar. It's time now for your opening tip. On the program yesterday for this segment of the show, I kind of painted last night as what I perceived to be a celebration of Ute football being back, and honestly not more than that, okay? So I'm not a radio host, rain on the parade guy. I'm not. However, today I'm going to do that just a little bit, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? So Louis C.K., stand-up comedian. I know he's a creep. I've got bad news for you if you don't want to watch or listen to any creeps do stand-up comedy, but that's a different topic. He had a bit a number of years ago where he talked about how nobody is proud of men in their 40s and 50s for just simply doing their job, no matter what you do. Like, he's won Emmys. It's like, yeah, that's what you do. Nobody's proud of middle-aged men for simply just doing their job. Yeah, you're a middle-aged man. You got to figure out life a little bit by now. Show up on time, work hard, then go home and maybe enjoy your time. People get very proud of young people for doing very simple things because, hey, you got a job out of college. Congratulations. Or old people for walking down the stairs. Hey, you're 90, you can still walk. Way to go. Middle-aged, show up and do your job, all right? And that's what I perceived to have happened last night from Utah's front line, right? So I'm hearing a lot today like Cam Rising is back. And look, if there's one net takeaway from last night, it's certainly for me how calm and composed Cameron looked. And how every time he had an opportunity to hit an open receiver, it seemed like he did that, and very few misses. His 5 incompletions, I think there were 2 drops, and the other 3 were pretty close. I mean, he was almost perfect, okay? 5 touchdowns and 5 drives. I'm not sitting here to be nitpicky about Cam because ultimately Utah's future, as far as what they could do this season, is predicated on what number 7 can do. It's on his shoulders. We'll get to Isaac Wilson a little bit later, but Cam Rising did what Cam Rising was supposed to do last night. I wasn't awed. I wasn't blown away because I've watched this kid play now for 7 years. And there was a little flag football in the backyard feel, all due respect to SUU. I mean, Dejon Stanley wide open on swing passes. Brant Keithy wide open. Third touchdown was a grown-ass man touchdown, and that was awesome to see. And certainly Dejon Stanley, the 4th-string running back, catching 3 balls for 150 and a couple of touchdowns is really, really cool and really fun. But I viewed last night as simply the frontline guys showing up and doing their job, and really nothing more than that, right? I mean, they were a 38.5-point favorite. By the way, my final score prediction, 49-6, somewhat close. I thought SUU would score some fluky touchdown or something, some pick six or some scoop and score or maybe a big play. And SUU did move the football over the course of the first couple of drives, and I know some Ute fans were a little bit disappointed about that. So, ultimately, I've heard and read a lot over the course of today that this was Utah football showing their dominance. This was Utah football sending a statement to the college football world in the Big 12, like the road to the Big 12 championship goes through Salt Lake. I don't view the game last night as that. I just don't because of the opponent. Ultimately, like I said, the frontline guys showed up and they did their job. Spencer Fano got beat a couple of times on the O-line, and that's going to happen. He was hurt last year. And SUU has some physical kids on the D-line that returned from a team last year that went 6-5 in a decent FCS conference. But this is not a team that should have even been on the same field. And let me just say this. As we evolve into this new future of college football, I will not miss games like this. I won't. And maybe that makes me in the minority. And certainly if you're SUU, you rely on your check that you received from driving up to Salt Lake and get your heads kicked in to finance your athletic department. And once these games go away, that sucks for them. I'm not saying it doesn't, but did we really learn anything about Utah football last night? I think the answer is no, ultimately. That's why I said yesterday, for me, it was more of a celebration of Utah football being back. And that's what it felt like. Over at the tailgate, our tailgate, it was awesome to meet a bunch of you. And then walking through the tailgate, seeing a bunch of old college friends and seeing a bunch of people was really fun. And that's what I viewed yesterday as, simply fun. And we'll learn more about Utah as they go throughout the course of their schedule when things, start to get a little bit more difficult. Baylor's going to roll into town with a head coach that is desperate to keep his job, a guy we know around here in Dave Aranda, right? And so next week will be a little bit more interesting, although I anticipate Utah probably being a 2-touchdown favorite, something along those lines. We are not going to learn a ton about Baylor coming up tomorrow as they're going to take on Tarleton State. So they'll probably roll, and then we'll have two teams in Salt Lake City next year. It's a non-con game that's already been scheduled, so even though these are Big 12 friends and peers, this is not a Big 12 game. But I just can't get with the crowd today that is celebrating what they saw on the field last night, unless what you're celebrating is simply Utah football being back and Utah football doing their job game one. That's what I perceived yesterday to be, okay? Now, when I say that, I mean mostly the frontline players, the ones and the twos. Because ultimately, after the game was in doubt, after the game was no longer in doubt, and they were up 35-0, side note, what did I say about Cameron Rising tucking and running the football? I don't think you can rewire this kid's brain. And am I the only one that every time he tucked and run, I felt my breath leave my body? I'm like, what are you doing? And at one point on the broadcast, they showed a replay of Coach Witt walking over to Cam after Cam tucked and run and ran the football for about 4 or 5 yards and took a couple of hits. Coach Witt walked over to him. I don't know what he said, and then they kind of shared a smile, so it might have been tongue-in-cheek. But, man, you're up 35-0, driving the ball again towards the end of the half, and we had 2 or 3 Cam Rising tuck and runs, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Okay, so ultimately Cam looked like Cam. He's the guy that's been doing this for 7 years, and if you're 25 years old playing against 18 and 19 FCS players, you should look like Cameron looked last night. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just saying I'm hearing all this stuff today that, yes, this is why they're the favorites. This is why Cam Rising is underrated as a Heisman candidate. I'm like, hold on just a second. Last night was fun. Last night was a celebration of Utah football. Last night was Alex Smith inducted into the Ring of Honor. Last night was the Muss looking awesome and loud and proud. And then the Utes showed up, and they looked like a team that is coached by a guy who tells you your job is to do what we ask you to do, show up on time, work hard, and the results will kind of take care of themselves. This was not a statement to the rest of the college football world. I'll tell you what, I did like this new Coach Witt moniker that ESPN showed on the broadcast. I hadn't heard this until last night when apparently Kyle was telling this to his recruits, quote, "You will become us. We will not become you," right? That sounds like something Kyle would definitely say, certainly to incoming recruits, to let them know, like, this is what we do when it comes to Utah football. And what Utah football does is what Utah football did last night. Okay, handle your business, show up, do your job. And then, as I talked about a little bit earlier, there were enough mistakes and enough missteps that if you're Kyle Whittingham, if you're Andy Ludwig, if you're Morgan Scalley, you have some legitimate things that you can clean up prior to Baylor, prior to Big 12 play that will start on the road in Stillwater. It wasn't a perfect performance, but as it pertains to what we were expecting from Utah against a much lesser, inferior opponent, I thought it fit the script, and honestly, nothing more than that. We'll get to some other thoughts a little bit later on as we have a ton of Utah football guests, but we're live today at Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road is where you can find us. We are out front ESPN 710th. They've got pizza. What?
Yes, sir.
We got pizza, sodas, and water, and we got Arby stopping by. Arby, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Labor Day is always a fun time. We always do our annual 10 event. We slash the prices. All the prices are clearly marked in the windows. We've got rebates back. We've got low financing. We've got super great deals going on.
Okay, and so if people stop by, they can grab some pizza, grab some drinks, and then talk about the giveaway that you have going on inside.
Yeah, man, we're really excited about it. 75-quart Lone Mountain Cooler. It's got all the accessories, the cutting board, the basket, the bottle opener, the whole 9 yards.
So when it comes to the Labor Day sale, I feel like I've been coming up here for like 15 years. The nice thing about your lot is got something for dad, you got something for the wife, you got something, your kid's going to school, he just turned 16, you got a vehicle for pretty much any need, yeah?
Every budget, every situation, every lifestyle, we got it all.
When you say every budget, talk about financing options, because maybe we have listeners who are saying, man, my kid's 16, I don't know how I can get him in a car, but you guys have good financing options.
We do. We work with all the local credit unions, all the local banks, so we build those relationships. It's really important we keep those active. Cars for kids, man, low APRs, you're probably like 6% right now, which sounds higher, but they're coming down. We've watched them drop about in half.
Right on, man. Well, Arby, good to meet you. You're going to be stopping by all day, okay?
I'll be here.
All right, Arby out here at Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road. It's their Labor Day tent sale. I was walking around the lot earlier. They've got something for mom. They've got something for dad. They've got something for the whole family, or if your kids are going to high school and you're looking for a car for them, this is their biggest sale of the year. I've been coming here for like 15 years. Pizza, sodas, come hang out, enter to win this great cooler at 770 West Riverdale Road here in Ogden. All right out of the gates on a Friday, another Ute legend, Eric Weddle, stops by coming up next right here on ESPN 700. 770 West Riverdale Road, Wasatch Front Kia. It's their Labor Day tent sale. Bunch of vehicles priced to move. Little Caesars pizzas, sodas, waters. You also can enter to win a really, really cool cooler, about a $400 value that they'll pull a name out to award before we get out of here at 6 o'clock. All right, one Utah legend was enshrined into the Ring of Honor last night in Alex Smith. And we have another Utah legend on our radio show on this beautiful Friday, Eric Weddle, on the program. Ewed, happy Friday, man. How we doing?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on. What a game by the Utes last night. Even better to get Alex, the first inductee to the Ring of Honor. What an amazing night and accomplishment. So a lot to be excited about, especially the way they played, and we'll get into some of that.
So would you like to break any news on the show that you've been informed that you're going to be the next honoree into the Ring of Honor, Ewed?
You know, I let the people, the powers that be, know that whenever my time comes, if that does come, that I'm good. That I honestly think they need to go with some of the older guys, because I'm here. I'm gonna be here for a long time. So let's get some of the old guys out of respect to them before me.
Fair enough, fair enough. So I wonder what your thoughts are on what I perceive to be, Eric, just Utah football kind of doing their job last night, right? Like Kyle talks about that all the time. You know, it's the way you guys work. It's the way you prepare. They were 38.5-point favorite. I'm not trying to diminish SUU, but at least from the front line guys, Eric, it felt like they kind of showed up and did what we all expected them to do. What were your main takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they came out and executed at a high clip. There wasn't a bunch of pre-snap penalties. I thought defensively we were pretty sound. They moved the ball a little bit here and there, but we tightened up when it got across our 50 and we created negative plays. And anytime you shut out an opponent, I don't really care who it is, that is an accomplishment in itself. And offensively, I love the fact that the first play of the game, Cam got drilled, and it was kind of like, man, he got back up, dusted himself off, and he went on to have a great game. And even him, he would say that there were a couple throws that he would love to have back. But, man, it was just nice to see the command, the confidence, the swag. Everyone just galvanizes around Cam and what he brings to our team. And I thought it was a great execution night. I thought he put the ball where the ball needed to be put, and the rest is up to it when we had 35 points on the board when he came out.
I'm glad you referenced the team galvanizing around him, because Coach Witt talks about that all the time. And you were a guy that I felt like had that effect. I wonder if you could speak to, as someone who, those of us who watched you, not just here but in the NFL, believes to be, really an excellent leader in your own right, what makes Cam that type of guy, that type of dude that does seem to galvanize his teammates?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a unique ability to instill belief in your teammates, and that takes time to do that. Not just on the field of how you play and how you prepare, but how you are as a teammate, how you work, how you are camaraderie wise. Do you really are you really a good teammate? Do you really take time to get to know your teammates? Are you a guy that hangs out after practice and hangs out at the crib doing whatever together as a team? Like that's how you really become a leader of men, and especially at the collegiate level. And I just know how the guys look at Cam. They never not believe that they're not going to win this game, regardless of how bad it may look, that they think that will ultimately come back because of their quarterback. And when you know that, believe that, you're going to play hard, and you're going to continue to fight to the bitter end. And that's what Coach Witt preaches. He always talks about family and playing together and playing for each other. And that's what Cam is. I mean, the dude was tying Isaac's shoes on the sidelines in between plays to help out his teammate. I mean, that's leadership 101.
Yeah, no, for sure. I wanted to get your take on, I don't know why I found this so on brand, but on the ESPN broadcast, they showed a new saying that Coach Witt is using with his recruits. And it goes like this. I want you to tell us what you think this means. It says, quote, You will become us. We will not become you. And I chuckled. So do I. I chuckled when they put it up. I'm like, that just sounds like something Kyle would say. What do you think that means? Help us understand this, Ewed.
Well, I think we're one of the few programs that still believe in culture and team building and building young men into future leaders and future men of society in the real world. And I really believe that when he says that, it is something like you gotta want to come to a program like ours that instills competition, that instills greatness on and off the field, that instills what those attributes look like of what it means to be a great father and a husband and an upstanding individual in the community, and really taking on that identity is, and it's time tested, the football program and what we stand for and what we believe, and it's being honest to these guys that you're going to become one of us, and we're not. It's not going to be the latter. I can tell you that.
Also, just a quick follow-up. Greg Popovich, obviously legendary Hall of Fame coach from the Spurs. He has a. And it's different, and you know this, you were a pro in addition to a college great, so it's different when you're talking to pros, but Popovich's line to his players, including Tim Duncan and Victor Wembanyama, is get over yourself, right? And so I took what Kyle was also is preaching to these recruits is like, look, we know that you have a brand. We know that you have an Instagram page. We know that you have a Twitter or whatever it is, and we know that NIL has allowed you, and I'm for it, I want to be clear, to monetize off of who you are. But once you step into our facility, Ewed, it's time for you to get over yourself. Does that make sense?
Oh, 1,000%. It's the we, not me attitude that the Rams talked about every day when I was there, or it was play like a Raven when I was in Baltimore. It's the mindset that when you step into the building, when you step amongst your teammates, that it's everyone else above myself. That's what it comes down to. And the easier, the quicker you can understand that and accept that and just welcome that mindset, you become you grow exponentially over the course of your time within those programs.
So since you and I last spoke, an announcement was made public. You may have known it, and I know a lot of people behind the Iron Curtain of Utah football knew it, but publicly it became known that Morgan Scalley was given the moniker of coach in waiting. It was reinstated on his employment agreement after it was taken away for a while, as we all know. You know Morgan well. I've known Morgan, 25 years. We were fraternity brothers back in college at the U, and I think it's been applauded here locally in the sake of continuity. What's the Eric Weddle take?
Yeah, I've known for a while, but it's not my business to tell these types of things. And there's not a better man to lead our program into the next phase of collegiate football than Morgan. I mean, he is Utah through and through. He is one of the greatest men I know, and I look up to him to this day. Try to learn from him and how he teaches, how he mentors, how he motivates. And he is one of one, and he has been prepared and groomed in a sense for this job over the course of his career coaching at Utah. He's had every role you can think of to make sure that he understands what it takes to run a program and the standard that is expected. And the great thing about Utah is there's not going to be an outsider ever to coach and lead the Utah football program. I mean, us alums alone wouldn't allow it. And I know Mark and what an amazing job he's done, Dr. Hill before that. Like you just don't get an outsider to coach our program and lead our program. It's just too precious and too top notch and done the right way that it needs to be someone from the inside. So he's going to do an incredible job. I can't wait to support him and be there for him along his journey.
I wonder, Eric, from your keen eye, as someone who played in a way that I certainly did not, what you saw last night that you believe will transfer over when the competition improves. Now, Baylor rolls into Salt Lake next week, Probably not going to learn a ton about Baylor tomorrow. They play Tarleton State. But Dave Miranda will be coaching for his job after a couple of down years, and we all know Dave around here. It's one thing to do what everyone did last night against SUU, all due respect, but when it comes to Baylor and then Big 12 play, we know the competition will improve. What did you see last night that you're confident will translate as the season goes on?
Well, I think just when you look at the technique and fundamentals of playing the game of football, it's in most cases, the team that eliminates pre-snap penalties, doesn't turn over the football, and blocks and tackles the best usually wins the game and controls the line of scrimmage. So I saw that. Obviously, there are plays where we let the guy cross our face, or we didn't hold the base block and he ended up making a tackle. Like those things can be improved on, but just the mere effort and tenacity of running the football and open field tackling and getting the double teams up to the second level, like I saw that. I think we have explosive playmakers on offense, and we got a great quarterback leading the way. So I feel like we can put up points with anyone now. And defensively, we're always going to have the advantage because of the defense we play and having the best defensive coordinator in the country. So Baylor's going to come to town. They're a little funky on defense with their, the 3-3-5 or the stack. They do a bunch of movement, all this other crazy stuff. You manage that movement and the twists and the games that they run. It's a gash city when you block it up. So I'm excited for a better opponent, but I still think that the result will be the same.
So once the backups came in, the game slowed a little bit, which you expect. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what you saw from Isaac Wilson, who, first series, he's sacked. Next play, throws a pick. Settled in, threw a touchdown pass to Caleb Lohner. For me, Eric, I was a little surprised they went with Isaac simply because Brandon Rose has experience in the program, and Sam Heward, who they got in the transfer portal, is more of a vet. And obviously we want Cameron upright and healthy all year, but what are your thoughts on what you saw from Isaac last night and what Ute fans should expect from their QB2 all year?
Yeah, I felt like it was a typical freshman playing in a real football game, college football game, and made some plays. He also made some decisions that you look at as a freshman, and the great thing about him, and I've spoken to him and talked ball with him in the quarterback room when I was there in spring ball, that he's the guy that'll learn and view those experiences on what he could have done, especially like that pick in the red zone. He short arming or whatever the case may be, trying to fit it in there. You gotta lay that over the top of the back pylon. With that hinge corner out there. So it's just little things like that where you can only learn in real live game experience. So honestly, he's the future, so I'm not really too surprised that he was in there. We all know after this season, he's going to be the guy. So let's get him some reps and get him that experience so that transition won't be too much.
Have we have a few fun stories, but Caleb Lohner once upon a time was a Utah basketball player, then a BYU basketball player, then a Baylor basketball player, and then ultimately he's landed here as a tight end. He's never played football, Eric. I mean, and you played with Antonio Gates. You played with some insanely good tight ends, and Mark Andrews, I could go on. But Antonio Gates, for a lot of listeners, they may not know, he was an insanely good basketball player, but probably needed to play football in order to cut a paycheck. We saw Caleb not just with the touchdown pass he led, but he played a lot of snaps, and I thought he looked really good. What are your thoughts on this fun story, this former basketball player now trying his hand at high-level football?
I love it. I love our program that gives opportunities to players from different sports backgrounds, different positions. Like I know every year there's guys that switch positions because the coaching staff sees maybe a unique ability to play a different position on the other side of the ball. And I'm telling you, man, basketball players translate to really good tight ends when they play football because of the ability, the radius, the catching, the hand-eye coordination. The transition really is blocking and the physicality of it. But if you got a nasty, like, physical basketball player and then you put him on the football field and that transition is quick, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare matchup that our tight end group is so fun to watch. And I tell people all the time, the hardest teams, in my opinion, over the course of my career, are teams that play in 12 personnel, which is one back, two tight ends. And those two tight ends can both block physically enough that you can run the football against base, but then you split them out and you match them up against safeties that can't cover, and it's a matchup nightmare. You're just winning those reps. So I'm excited. I think the variety and the different packages that we can throw out there week to week is going to be something special, and I know Lud's going to have great, sick game plans each week.
Sure, you've been asked this, and I'm sure you heard about the conversation that went on after Austin Rivers decided to start yapping. So I got to ask the Eric Weddle take. Is it easier for football players to translate over to play high-level basketball, or is it easier for basketball players to transfer over and play high-level football?
I don't think – I think it's – I wouldn't say easier at all. I don't think so. Let me put it like this: so you're saying like a Devontae Adams, a Jalen Ramsey. If you gave them a year to just train basketball, do I think they could go in there and make an NBA team? It would be hard, but I think they possibly could. Now, if you put like what people don't understand is these guys are like 6'5", 6'7", 200 pounds. They literally would get broken the first time they make a catch over the middle or get tackled. So what position are you playing? Like, are you playing defensive end at 6'6", 215? Like, I don't know, that physical toll. So I don't know. I think like the whole crazy that these guys make dumb comments like that. I just respect the game on both sides. That I don't even think either side could do it, if I'm being honest. But if you said give them a year, who would have a better chance? I think the football player going to basketball player would have a better chance.
Before we set you loose, a couple minutes left, I've got to ask you about Alex, who, when I heard that he was going to be the guy, the first one inducted, it just felt right. Now, you have a good point about some of the old school guys maybe getting looks before we just have everyone from 2004 on the team, right? But, we had Bill Bush on the show in studio on yesterday prior to the game, and he talked about showing up to recruit Alex and how most people were going to those games to watch Reggie Bush. And I had a chance to catch up with Alex yesterday at the tailgate before he was honored. He's a friend of the show, and watching what he did after landing at Utah as like a half-star guy has been among the coolest things as a media member I can think of. You're a good friend of his. Give me your thoughts on watching Alex do what he did throughout the course of not just college but into the pros and coming back from that crazy injury and now culminating with a really cool night at Rice-Eccles last night.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a better guy to be the first inductee. He goes in as the College Football Hall of Fame and now going in as the Ring of Honor, first one. And just his story, obviously the play on the field, how he represents himself off the field, obviously his playing career in the NFL. And then he is a living example of never giving up and fighting through adversity and having the mental toughness to continue on every day when there was no light at the end of the tunnel for him, right? So I just admire him. I look up to him, in awe of him, and again, I was ecstatic. One, that they're doing it because I think we have so many amazing, incredible players that have done awesome things that we need to honor them and shed light on those in the history of our program. And then two, for him to be the first guy, not a better guy to do it.
No doubt. All right, Webb, before I set you loose, we have Utah BYU back on the schedule as a conference game for the first time since 2010. And, we're all really excited about it. And, we have Kalani and A-Rod on the show throughout the year. And so I very much like Kalani. My guess is you do too, because who doesn't? But that game holds an extra special weight this year with the conference ramifications. What's a Utah alum's take on Utah BYU November the 9th in Salt Lake City?
but yeah, it's awesome that the game's back. It should have never left, in my opinion. I think they should have continued the game regardless of conference affiliation. And man, I tell people I got a soft spot for BYU because they basically the whole staff was, I know, right, and they have a personal relationship. So I pull hard for Kalani and those guys, except for 1 week. I respect their program. I respect what they do down there, and it's definitely changed since when I was in school and the whole dynamics of it all, of the rivalry. I know it's still pretty animated, but it's not. It's changed because it's the people that are leading the program and expressing respect and admiration for the other side is evident. So it takes away a lot of the nonsense at times when we just go out and the best team is going to win. So I love it. I love that they're back on the schedule. Do I feel that they're on the same wavelength as our program wise? Like I think they're a step down, if I'm being honest, just play wise. That obviously goes out the window in that game, but I feel like we're the better program right now, and we're the better team. Still got to go prove it. So, but it's awesome that it's back on the schedule, and it's going to be electric having that game back and being at home this year.
All right, man. Well, I always appreciate your time. It's great to have football back, and you have a great weekend, and love to do it soon, okay?
You got it, buddy.
All right, Eric Weddle, Ute legend, Super Bowl champ, 6-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. Man, that dude had such a great career. He's now doing a little coaching of his own in the high school ranks. You can find Eric on social media at Weddle's Beard. It's still his Twitter handle. Wow, that's where you get him. All right, coming up in just a bit, we're going to be back again at the Utah RV Super Show. Coming up, it's Utah's premier RV event at the Mountain America Expo Center. Imagine some of the largest mobile homes on the market sitting in one of Utah's largest expo centers. Expect to see new 2025 models and special closeout pricing on all 2024 models. It's an event you'll want to put on your calendar. The doors open Thursday, September the 12th, and the event goes through Sunday, September the 15th, just in time for the upcoming holidays. There's something for every price range with special show financing. Also, bring a can of food for the Utah Food Bank and get $1 off per can, up to half off adult admission. It's for a good cause, and you have an entire afternoon of enjoyment. Discount passes can be found at UtahRVSupershow.com. All right, coming up on the other side, we are going to catch up with Craig Bolerjack. Then it's time for Gordon Monson, Max Brown, and Chris Comrani off and running. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go on Friday, live today at Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road. We've got free pizza, we've got sodas, we've got waters. It's their Labor Day tent sale with a ton of vehicles priced to move. And the address, again, is 770 West Riverdale Road up here in Ogden. They're giving away a really cool cooler, about a $400 value. All you have to do is enter to win. They're going to draw a name and announce that later on today. It's Driving a Friday. Happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, we got Gordon Monson coming up in just a little bit. We are live today at Wasatch Front Kia in Ogden, 770 West Riverdale Road. So it really is time for the Big Show, Big Hour here on the Drive, which is brought to you by Big O Tires. And we wanted to get the biggest name first and save the worst for last. So starting off the 3 o'clock hour, you know him, you love him, the TV voice of the Utah Jazz, Craig Bowler-Jack on a Friday. Bowler, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Buddy, you're the best. You know what? If Gordon's listening, he'll he'll bust one. I love it, man. How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I wanted to start here because I always feel the need to remind our listeners that once upon a time you were one of the biggest and main college football voices for some of the biggest networks. And I don't want to do that to make you sad. I just wonder if this time of year, even though it's been a few years, if you get itching and wish you were in a booth to call some of these games.
Oh, I'm all over it. If someone would call, I've had a couple of calls, but nothing that really amounted to much to say, what do you think? You want to do a 4-game pack for us? Things have changed so much, Spence. I tell you, I was honored to do 13 years at CBS and 7 at ESPN and then nearly 5 at Fox. It was a joy. College football special in my heart. I love the pageantry. I love the fandom. There's nothing like it. The NFL, obviously, you got the best of the best, but there is just something still I gravitate to. College football has still not much, but still a bit of an amateur feel to it. The NIL's taken some of that away, but there's still young men who are playing the game, who are there because of the love of the game, and walk-ons, or you're not, you may be a 3 on the depth chart, but you know what? You're there every day, and you're part of a team and a part of a concept. And I tell you, I love that. And the fan bases that travel week after week after week, and I saw it so much in the SEC, Spence. It's religion. It is truly. The fan base is so strong in the South, and I think it's growing that way. It has a great chance to do it as well in the Big 12, since the Pac-12 is no longer. But I hope that Utah, and I hope BYU, and I hope K-State, and I hope KU, and the rest travel, because there's some great places. Not something that you want to put on, let's just say, your vacation list, but in the sense of college football game day, not a bad stop.
And full stadiums, right? I mean,
yes.
If there's one thing, I've gone on Pac-12 road trips, and you show up in Berkeley or you show up Stanford, and it's like, where is everyone? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Now, I always tend to remind people, and this is my own opinion, the worst fans in the NBA are Miami Heat fans and LA Laker fans, because I've been to a ton of games in both markets, and all I hear around me is, what are you doing after the game? Do you want to leave after the third quarter? Like the video of Heat fans trying to get back in the building after their team came back from 20 down in a finals game is perfect. I'm like, well, it's the finals. Don't leave. And you can't get back in a nice white button-down shirt where you have it buttoned down 6. But, the fan base is driving me crazy. But in the Big 12, it does feel like, from what I've seen so far, most of the stadiums are just jam-packed with legitimate college football fans.
Yeah, they truly are. K-State, KU, of course, I know that very well. And, we know what BYU and Utah have always brought in the Lavelle Edwards days. I'm anxious to see, again, how BYU starts this weekend. And, K-State's got a game against UT Martin. KU, I don't even know who Lindenwood is, by the way. I was looking at that score last night. Don't know. But, that's the other part of college football, too, Spence, is that as this thing continues to evolve, the smaller schools, much like, last night, I mean, there was a payday, right, that keeps the program alive, but for how long? Until the higher-ups decide to squeeze them out of the pie. And, those are the first 3 weeks of the season that you tune up on. And those are the games, though, that teams survive on, right? The smaller, teams that survive on for the rest of the year and really fuel their entire, most of their athletic programs. So that's what concerns me about getting into these mega conferences or the 60 or whatever this may become, because I don't think we're by any means nearly through with the reorganization of college football. But what about the little guy? How about the guy that still wants to play football, get an education, but yet they may get squeezed out, and that to me is a disappointment. That's a sad state.
So I wanted to get your take, Craig, on a few things here. I wanted to start out with this quote that ESPN Plus put on their broadcast last night that apparently is what Kyle Whittingham is now telling recruits who want to play for Utah. Because as you referenced, with the ever-changing landscape of college football, and quite frankly, the ever-changing landscape of just life, the way that we've evolved as a society where social media has allowed, 12-year-olds, quite frankly, to make a grip of money off their own brand if they want to, let alone great high school football players that get a bunch of followers and, then suddenly they show up on campus with 1 million Instagram followers, an NIL deal that's paying them six-figure salary every year. But apparently no matter who it is, Kyle says to them, quote, "You will become us. We will not become you."
Love it.
And I loved it. I was just like, that's so perfect. And you know what it reminded me, Bowler? It reminded me of what Greg Popovich says to his players, whether it's Tim Duncan or Victor Wembanyama, which is get over yourself, right?
Yes.
Yes. So what do you make of that approach that Coach Wood is using with his recruits, some of whom show up with padded bank accounts and millions of social media followers?
It's the only way that programs survive, because once a coach loses the grip, then you're done, in my opinion. My career has spanned 35 going on 40 years, and I'm blessed. But I've seen incredible changes of, there was a day, Spence, when you got a college scholarship, you were part of a team, and it was a blessing. It was a gift. It was an incredible gift to let you come to a university, and they're going to pay for your education and let you play Division I college football. I was absolutely ecstatic. And now the educational part of it means very little, because it's NIL. It's about what's next. The jersey, how much, when am I going to the NFL? What's my draft status? Oh, I can't play in the bowl game, by the way, Spence, because you know what? That could hurt my draft, status because of injury. And that was never a thought in a huddle that I've ever was involved in. It was about playing. It was about team. And what Kyle says, and the message is very clear. It's old school, but that's what's going to take, like a Pop and like a Kyle and like a Kalani, to have those statements and make it very clear. If you want to play here, this is how we do it, not how you come in and want to play, because it is a team concept, and that's what the university is about. I think it's a beautiful statement, and I hope young men understand what that means. If not, they may not be there long, and that's okay, because other players would love to have that opportunity.
So last night, yesterday on the show, my whole thing was I view last night as a celebration that Utah football is back, right? I encourage people. I read this great New York Times article a couple of weeks ago where it was an editorial board where they're encouraging people to say yes to more things, because one of the pieces of collateral damage of COVID is we are still hermits in a way because it made us accustomed to staying home. And people aren't being as social, and young people don't have the social skills, and it's not their fault. If you were a sophomore and junior in high school when you had to stay home and wear masks everywhere, it's hard to change that mindset to get outside of your comfort zone. Go talk to a girl. Be that guy that goes and talks to the girl at the restaurant or the bar or whatever. So I kind of viewed it as a standpoint, like, say yes to going to the game, even though it's Southern Utah. Say yes to being a part of the experience of just having Utah football back. And from the standpoint of simply the flow of the game, I just view it the way I think Kyle would view it, and that is they showed up and they did their job. They were a 38.5-point favorite. Obviously, Cam looked great, but there were a lot of throws there, just wide open backs, wide open wide receivers. I don't view last night as some massive statement that Utah sent to the rest of the Big 12. I view last night of what we expect from a Coach Witt football team, and that is these guys showed up and they did their job. And not much more than that, right? Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, in week one, that's what you want. You want to make sure that practice, those 4 weeks, you come back, you've hit, and had the pads on, and you've hit enough of your teammates. So last night you get a chance to actually go and see what you've learned and how good you can be. Look, as the competition increases, then your level of play has to increase as well. And that's going to be drilled into Utah's heads as this season unwinds in the Big 12. you know what I thought last night too, Spence? I really wanted just to see, after 600-plus days of not taking a snap in live action, what would Cam be? And what were my expectations? Not much, but he excelled past what I thought. I thought he looked calm. I thought he looked confident. I thought he, obviously, 5 touchdowns in the first half. That's, again, nothing against Southern Utah. But it's about the competition that you're facing, and he took advantage of that matchup. I thought Keefe, by the way, the second touchdown that he punched in was a really good telltale sign of maybe where he's at in his comeback as well. And so the offense was rolling. You know, they got, you know, I think the one thing I probably would talk to Cam about is in games like that, he played a half, but, you know, still find a way to throw the ball out of bounds or get down and not take it. That second hit he took, you know, kind of like, woo. But sometimes you got to take a hit. Just know that in your mind, mentally, you're back. And, you know, after an injury, and I had an ACL, he's had horrific, you know, troubles with his knee. You have to get knocked down and then get back up to say, okay, it stayed together. I'm good. And I think last night probably he found himself a little bit and gained a lot of confidence. And I think the team did too, Spence. I mean, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of stress and pressure on this team. And now you see all these different polls, even Kansas or Kansas State is ahead of them. I think, didn't ESPN put up a poll last night that even, I think they finished got them 5th in the Big 12, which then again, a lot of people say, forget it. You know, this is the best team in the conference, but it's going to play itself out. As long as Cam stays healthy and Utah, you know, shows their depth and also refines their defense and gets into a little bit more higher level competition. You know what I think? It's going to be a good football team, good entertainment, and it should be a fun year. Well, from what I saw, just the first taste, by the way, last night.
513 yards of offense. SUU only had 150. And Craig, the defense, this caught me off guard. It's the first shutout for Utah since 2019. I was kind of surprised about that. That 2019 team was nasty, as we all know. What do you think just that does for Morgan Scalley and that side of the ball, regardless of who the opponent is, to walk into the locker room after the final whistle and know that the other team put up a big goose egg?
Oh, huge. You know, again, building confidence is what it's about. It's a week-by-week process. Morgan has done an incredible job throughout the years of putting the right guys on the field. They're active. They get around. They swarm. That's kind of just who they are. That's Utah football. Also, special teams is kind of the calling card for Whittingham and the Utes as well, to punch out get a fumble or get a punt return, get a kickback for a touchdown. So all those things come into play. How active are you? How athletic are you? And I think, you know, from the old days of the WAC and the Mountain West, I think it's amazing to watch this program grow in depth and in athleticism, Spence. Their speed on the field, defense. I didn't really get a good eye of. Yeah, they pitched the shutout, but you know, again, it's got to be a little higher level competition, I think, to kind of get the most out of those guys. But it's still, I mean, 5 years without a shutout? You'll take it. And I thought too, Cam got 25 yards on the ground. He ran when he had to, but he's still going to have to find a way to protect himself. That, like I said, that second shot he took late before the half, you know, kind of made a few people, I'm sure, cringe. But, you know, I kind of liked what I saw. Game one, I don't think, you know, Witt couldn't probably be happier with the performance, man. They beat the spread, and they entertained, and Cam Rising rose up to the occasion, no pun intended, but you know what? People wanted to see what he could do or could not do, and a lot of answers last night.
We spoke about this last week, so not to be redundant, but I remain skeptical, and I've utilized the Taysom Hill example, and I catch a little pushback, so I just want to be clear. I'm not saying Cam and Taysom are the same. They're not. They're completely different players. I just remember Bronco Mendenhall talking about his desire. And when he said this, I'm like, so what's the plan, Bronco? He's like, we don't want Taysom to run very much this year. I'm like, okay, so what exactly do you want him to do? Because while he has a cannon, his accuracy is what has forced him to play tight end in pro football. And by the way, what a great career. Taysom Hill is one of the most unique athletes that I've ever watched. I'm not knocking on Taysom Hill. Cameron is a more accurate thrower, but at the same time, some of Cameron's most electric, dynamic moments and effective moments have come in the past from him tucking it and running it, and I remain skeptical that he's ever going to learn to eat it. Now, I wish that he would, because I had to reach for a Xanax a couple times last night after he's breaking the pocket. I'm like, dude, don't do that. Get down.
Yeah.
So if you're going to run, slide, or, as you referenced earlier, just throw it out of bounds, man. Live to play another day. Is it possible to rewire his brain like that?
You know what? That's a great question, and only a sports psychologist at the University of Utah can probably answer it, because players are who they are. And there is something about, like, Taysom is one of the most incredible athletes we've ever had in the state of Utah. I think you'll agree.
Sure.
I mean, look what you just said it. Look what he's done in the National Football League, playing multiple positions at a high level. But I remember watching him play. You could not tame the beast, because once he got outside the tackles, Taysom was an athlete. I mean, totally the definition of an athlete. Strong, agile, fast, could cut, corners and plant a foot. But it also became his worst enemy, right, in college. And that came into having multiple injuries at the time. You hope, after what Cam's been through with the knee, that it still rings true in his mind. You can't take away Spence, just his natural ability, but he still has to, in that millisecond of making a decision, which is what it is, either to pass the ball, tuck and run, look, I'm in trouble, I read the blitz, they're coming on the edge. Like you just said, I know it's a cliche, but it is about living to play another down, another day, right? So if you throw it out of bounds, great. Go back, rehuddle, and refocus, and, you'll get another play call from the sideline. But I don't know what it will take for him to understand that. But maybe last night a couple of pops, maybe that's what it did. Maybe we'll see a little different Cam next week. But, if you're going to get in trouble, man, protect yourself, because you got a lot of guys, and a fan base depending on you. Isaac Wilson got on the field a little bit last night. I expected what happened was pretty much what they expected. Freshman jitters, you throw a pick, but you still get some reps. So, he's making his strides, but he's a young guy. Man, that's a big step to walk in behind Cam in the second half in front of the Utah football fans at Rice Eccles. That was, I'm sure, quite a head trip for him last night. But you got to start someplace, and that's, he got a pick, and then it looked like he shook it off and did okay.
So let's stick with last night for a moment before I set you loose. I do want a thought on BYU before I set you loose, Craig. But it was announced a few weeks ago that Utah football was going to create this new Ring of Honor, and they elected Alex Smith as the first honoree.
Yeah.
It feels right. I know listeners get sick of me talking about my experience as a student at Utah in the late 90s, but 2004, if you were a longtime football fan, was like, wait, we can do what? We can look like this? And then obviously Alex, first overall pick, spent a ton of years in pro football, including a few with your Kansas City Chiefs, NFL Comeback Player of the Year, and that E60 documentary on what he went through after that leg injury was insane. And then not to mention, he's just like the best dude, was able to catch up with him a little bit last night. So before I get a thought on tomorrow in BYU, what'd you make of seeing Alex honored at halftime at Rice Eccles last night?
I think it's right. It's the right time. And you know what? I think programs, Spence, honestly, that begin to build tradition, and they, which Utah has, by the way, Rose Bowl, beating Bama, Alex, #1 pick, National Football League. It's the right thing to do. And those honors shouldn't come, they should come with honor. And what I mean by that is that you earn your way there, not just names to be there to fill the ring. They've got one at Arrowhead, and you've got multiple Hall of Famers there, Willie Lanier. I mean, this is what I talk about, Bobby Bell, all those guys back in the Super Bowl IV days against Minnesota. But, it's special. And I think Alex had to be humbled some. But his story is also part of why he's in the ring, the first. Not only what he did in college, but what he did in football, but what he did in life. And not to get too, mushy, but look, a comeback player of the year, and what he went through. We saw it ourselves. It's an incredible journey back from really almost losing your leg. And I think that journey is part of, I think, what makes that name in the Ring of Honor even more special, to be honest, because it shows the human side and the frailties of who we are and the way that he battled to come back. And that's what really I think I appreciate the most.
All right, Buller, before I set you loose, BYU welcomes in an FS foe in Southern Illinois. And I've got to say, man, I'm a little bit surprised. So the line opened up at 19.5. And I remember that. I said, okay, that feels right, 3 touchdowns. It moved over the course of about 6 hours all the way down to 14, which means a couple wise guys who follow this stuff in a way that only wise guys do because they're the ones that make money, saw the line and said, no way, and pushed it all the way down to 14. I think it's Jake Retzlaff. Sean O'Connell, our midday host, thinks it's Bohannon, who won a Big 12 championship with Baylor. But tomorrow, Southern Illinois, I've got a lot of family and friends that love BYU football. There's this undercurrent of anxiety for not just this game, but all year long. So what are you expecting from BYU against a lesser foe in the way that Utah saw SUU last night? And what are you expecting from them big picture all year?
I think it's the more rugged player with experience, Bohannon from Baylor. I mean, I've watched some tape on him, and, he looks to be more, let's just say, chiseled and skilled in the position. And Baylor has always run a little bit more wide-open offense back in the day when I used to call those games. So we talked about this 2 weeks ago. If you have 2 quarterbacks, a lot of people say you don't even have a good one. And that may be the issue and why, you fall to 14 on what Vegas believes, the odds will be or the point spread. So a lot of questions again. Utah got some answered. BYU's got a lot, man. You have to have somebody in the huddle that all 10 guys are looking at and they say, yep, you're the guy. If you have a split, as I've said before, it doesn't work. And because 4 guys are believing it's him and then the other, 5 are saying, no, I'm going here. And I just think it's a tenacious little situation that's got to be answered by Kalani and his staff. And then when they make that decision, you got to stick with it. Because once you start jumping back and forth, and this has happened at a lot of schools, BYU included, it starts to break apart even the fan base because they team up on who they think should be running the show as well. And you don't need that. Kalani doesn't need that as he tackles his Big 12 schedule. And that, to me, I think is the most concerning part of it. Fan base strong, but yet, as you know, man, it doesn't take much to kind of, the boo birds come out pretty quick in any college or NFL stadium. So I think it's an interesting game to get your feet. The old cliche is let's get one under our belt and get out uninjured, which is so true. But he's got a couple of weeks to work this out, and maybe these are audition games, right? To really see what live action against not your first team defense, but against another opponent. And Kalani's got to make decisions on who he's going to go with and stay with.
Buller, you're the man. I appreciate you starting the big show, big hour with professionalism and decorum and intelligent conversation. And I don't know what's going to come next, so say a quick prayer for me, will you?
Well, I will, man. I'll be listening, and I just don't know what kind of mood. What my concern is that our good friend there, Gordon, it's a weekend holiday. Has he checked out already? I mean, I don't know. Well, I'm going to listen and find out.
I just hope he's had a snack and maybe a Diet Coke, so we get a little little energy is all.
Yeah, it's 3:30. Yeah, the sugar hit is. Yeah, he bet. Yeah, I hope he has a handful of juju fruit or whatever that is.
Well, stay tuned because you never know what's going to happen, Craig. Have a great weekend, my friend. Okay, we'll chat soon.
All right. Talk soon, buddy. Take care.
Craig Bolerjack, brought to you by Big O Tires. Get our healthy car special for $59.95, which includes a conventional oil change, alignment check, brake check, tire rotation, and more. We know tires and service can be an unexpected expense, so Big O Tires wants to make sure you have financing options to keep your vehicle in tip-top shape. No credit needed, financing options to fit any budget and any situation. Stop into any one of the 50 locally owned and operated locations in Utah or schedule an appointment online. Visit bigotires.com to find a location near you. All right, Gordon Monson, is going to join us coming up next. Going to move over to Max Brown and Chris Comrani, so a lot to do. We're live today. 770 West Riverdale Road in Ogden, Wasatch Front Kia. It's their Labor Day tent sale. And Arby stops by once again. Arby, how are you, buddy?
Doing well, man. It's a party out here. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. We got pizza, we got soda, we got waters. So if you want some food, 770 West Riverdale Road in Ogden is where you find us. We're outside, so you can't miss us. Let's start with the giveaway. I looked up the cooler online, man. That thing looks legit.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet cooler. It's got all the hookups, all the accessories. That Lone Mountain brand, they're based out of Montana. Everything sourced in the U.S. That thing's heavy-duty, bear-proof, they tell us even.
Bear-proof?
Yeah.
Very nice. So the way people enter to win is just come on in. You have a box
Come
inside,
in,
right?
throw your name in the box. You don't need to buy anything. We'd like you to. We're hooking you up,
Sure,
but you don't have to. Just throw your name in.
And speaking of hooking people up, I think this is like my 15th year coming up here for your Labor Day tent sale. And what always strikes me is like, oh, that's a really nice car for Dad. But, hey, if you have 3 or 4 kids and Mom's driving them around, you have SUV options too. And if you have a kid that just turned 16 and you're like, I don't know how to put them in a car, you have options for the entire family.
We do. So we're very community-based. We've been here 60 years. We realize that we're not anything without everybody around us. So we have everything we can to take care of everybody around us. So anything you need, delivery vehicles even, we got you.
So what makes this tent sale special? Like specifically, what can listeners expect that's actually a good deal on a car?
Thousands off. We've slashed prices. I've got rebates and discounts over $12,000 on some of these cars.
Oh, wow.
So that's not chump change. That's a pretty good deal. So we've got, everything. There's rebates. There's great APRs. A lot of people have talked about interest over the last couple of years. They're coming down, and we're lowering car payments, so it's nice.
Good to hear. And then finally, before I say you lose, financing options. Everyone has different budgets, and kids back to school, right, where maybe budgets are stretched. How can you help people?
Everything. We've got cars starting as low as $179 a month. So.
Excellent. All right, Arby, good to see you, man. We'll chat again.
Absolutely.
Come on by and say what's up. Some free pizza, some free drinks, some free soda. Your chance to win a really cool cooler, not to be redundant, by entering to win inside. All at your disposal here at Wasatch Front Kia on 770 West Riverdale Road here in Ogden. Come on by and say hello. Beautiful day outside on a Friday. We are outside. Coming up on the other side, it's Gordon Monson. The Big Show, Big Hour continues on the Drive on a Friday. Happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. like, no one's getting like a long-term deal between us. Steve's only giving people 2-year deals. And I said, I'm not signing for 2. And I said, in fact, if it's, it's very incentive laden, which is fine. And I said, if it's not 4, I'm not signing. That's my hill. And he said, all right, we'll meet you there. So. Good on you. No. That's very exciting. We're back. We are back. Hi, Porter. How are you, buddy?
Hello there, Spencer.
Hi. Well, look, you have listeners stopping by, trying to be a man of the people, saying hello. Okay, so I apologize. It's, but that's on me.
Hey, that's okay.
We're live today here in Ogden at 770 West Riverdale Road is where you find us. We're going to bring in Max Brown. We're also going to bring in Chris Camerani, but it is the Big Show, Big Hour on the program, brought to you by Big O Tires. We started things off with Craig Bowler-Jack. Wanted to get like the professional approach, the articulate explanation, the decorum to start things off. And then we've decided to end this hour with Gordon Monson from the Salt Lake Tribune. Gordon, sorry to keep you waiting, buddy. How we doing?
Well, I don't know what you're expecting. You're expecting chaos and just anarchy here in the second half. But, what fun is decorum, really? Bowler? That's boring, man. Let's get to it.
No, and that's my point was we saved the fun for the second half, right? Like, we're about to have a good time, yeah?
Well, I appreciate the compliment, I think.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. All right, Gordo, we have a game to talk about. We have Utah football back. And, for me, I was kind of expecting what happened last night to happen. And so I've been listening to some stuff today, reading some stuff today. It's like that was a statement game to the college football nation. No, it wasn't. Like, I would imagine if you're Coach Whittingham, you're happy that your players on the front line showed up and just simply did their job against an opponent they were supposed to smoke. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, that's exactly what Kyle Whittingham said after the game. He said, we did what we were supposed to do. And Whittingham has seen all this before, and he knows exactly what it all means. And he wanted to see his team go out and play clean. That's what he said. And they mostly did. And you saw the reemergence of Cam Rising and Brant Keithy, and then the emergence of someone like Dijon, the Mustard Man Stanley, which I've nicknamed him that.
All right, keep going.
Because Dijon Mustard is also rather explosive at times, like he is.
Keep going.
But
You're
anyway,
good.
I don't want to bog the show down with that. But, the truth is that these other guys emerged, and the stars, the greats of the past, showed that they could still play, at least at a basic level. And, yes, it was off the charts as far as 5 touchdowns in the first half, 254 yards for Cam Rising. But that's what you would expect him to do against a team like that, and that's exactly what he did. I think Kyle was really happy with what he saw.
So how much of what you saw last night, Gordo, do you believe is sustainable? Do you believe is an accurate representation of what we could potentially see from Utah football as the schedule gets more difficult? Now, we don't know much about Baylor. They're playing a, kind of a random throwaway team tomorrow, but we do know that Dave Aranda will certainly be coaching for his job. So it's a different challenge coming up this week, then it's a different challenge throughout the course of the rest of the year. What did you see last night that you think is sustainable moving forward?
Partially, Spence. Obviously, they're not going to dominate like that against some of the better teams they play. But if they can play attitudinally the way they did last night and trying to take advantage of certain things, I mentioned Dijon Stanley, but Kyle said last night that they had 9 or 10 plays for him in that game, and then he exploded with 150 yards and 110 of them after the catch. And he said we probably will expand that package now that we've seen what he did last night. And of course, Brant Keithy and Cam Rising, these guys they know exactly what they have. It was just them going out and knocking off some rust and being ready to play against far superior competition. And it looks to me, I mean, what I saw last night, Spence, it didn't change my opinion about what I thought the Utes would be at all, either in advance thereof or somehow less than. I think this is a really, really promising, good team, and potentially great team that is going to play well all year long. They're just not going to beat opponents 49-0.
No, they're not. But kind of a fun moment. But before we get to Caleb Lohner's touchdown pass, I do want to talk about what you saw from Isaac Wilson. And it's great news that Isaac was able to come in essentially. I mean, he probably could have come in earlier. You know, when they go up 35-0, you could hear the crowd and hear people say, all right, time to sit Cam. You know, this is obviously not anything that's going to be in App State, Michigan a few years ago. There's no danger here. Let's sit him. So Isaac takes the field. His family's in the stands, including his parents and his brother Zach. And he gets sacked play one. He throws a pick the next throw. And then, of course, the Zach jokes are flying on social media. But he settles in. And, you know, that Gordon, you know, when you think about it, that's the toughest competition that Isaac's ever played against in a live scenario. Now, he competes against the Utes defense in practice, which, of course, is 10 times more difficult than what he saw last night. But that's the first live action that Isaac's ever had against college players, albeit an FCS team. So from a macro standpoint, what did you see last night from QB2?
A live arm. The kid's got a live arm, and he's mobile. And what we saw last night is, I mean, I don't know about getting sacked on his first play, but we were all watching that. They're going, oops, and there goes an interception. He threw 2 picks. He's 7 of 11. I mean, 74 yards, whatever it was, a touchdown. You mentioned the loner. He's a talent. This kid's a talent. I don't know how he's going to compare to his brother Zach, but they knew he was going to play. They knew he was going to play that second half because they knew they were going to stomp this Southern Utah team. And so it went exactly as expected. And Kyle said afterward, he said it essentially in 3 words. It is or 4 words. It's a process. That's what it is for a young guy who has never played. I mean, he's playing high school football last year, and here he is playing, the most pivotal position on the football field for the Utes.
So, final Ute thing, then we'll move over to some other stuff today on the show with you. I wonder what your thoughts are. A couple weeks ago it was announced that the Utah football was going to create this Ring of Honor, and Alex Smith was going to be the first inductee. And, I talked to Bowler about this a little bit. We had Eric Weddle on earlier. 2004, for long-term football fans, 2004 will always be a very unique and special experience for people like me that went to school there that never thought my school could look like that. For long-time Utah football fans that had always waited for a team that could throw punches with the best teams in all of college football. So I thought it was a perfect selection. Eric Weddle on the show earlier said he'd like to see some of the old-time guys get some love before, more 2004 players are put in. But we all watched Alex, arrive here as a half-star dude from California and lead that team in a way that nobody thought he could, and then ultimately drafted number 1 overall, several years in pro football, comeback player of the year, all the things, Gordo. What's the Gordon Monson take on the Utah Ring of Honor and Alex Smith being the first inductee?
Oh, it's a cool idea, and obviously it's not an original idea. You see this around different places, but why not? And I went back through some of the great players Utah has had. They've got a plethora of them, and why not honor them with this kind of thing? I was told last night that it came down to Alex or Ron McBride, and as far as the first one. And they went with Alex, and you can expect Mac to get in there, and a whole bunch of others because there's so many to pick from. I don't know about the specific criteria that they're using for official, anointment for the Ring of Honor, but man, there's a lot of great players that have played at Utah, and Alex, of course, being one of those guys. That team from 2004, Spence, like you mentioned, that was the best team that's the best college football team I've ever seen in the state of Utah. I mean, that team was the definition of great. And it was better than 2008, in my opinion. And Alex Smith was the key cog.
Yes, he was. All right, so Utah gets their dub week 1, and it happened exactly the way that I thought that it would, as I referenced. So I feel like if you're Coach Witt, you're just thrilled that your players showed up and did their job. Now we move over to the Salukis, Gordo, and it's been a little bit weird to follow this Vegas line that opened up at 19.5 and then pretty quickly moved down to 14. And for people that don't gamble, first of all, congrats. Do not gamble on sports. You work too hard for your money. Keep it in your pocket. Keep it in your bank account. But if you're not familiar with what that means a few, maybe more than a few, but a few big-time sharks, a few big-time line movers saw that line and said, oh, wow, there's money to be made there. And so as a result of who knows how many pretty sizable bets, the line moved 5.5 points, and it's settled at 14. So FCS opponent, just like the Utes, you feel like BYU should roll. I think it's Retzlaff tomorrow. A lot of people think it's Bohannon, but, you went down and met with Kalani not too long ago. What are you expecting game 1 from the Cougars, and what are you expecting all year long from BYU?
Well, first of all, let me say this did not come from Kalani Sitake, but you're right. You're right. It is Jake Retzlaff. That's the guy. That's the guy who's going to start. Now, whether he will finish either the game or the season, I don't know about that. But Jake Retzlaff will be the starter, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, the quarterback position. And getting back to Isaac Wilson, we have seen so many quarterbacks through the years who have developed bit by bit. And Jake Retzlaff last year, everything was new to him, and he made some mistakes. He made some mistakes that cost the Cougars in a big way. They could have beaten Oklahoma, but he was new at it. He's got a live arm. We'll see whether he's mastered the offense. Here's the other thing about the line moving. This is the belief around the country that BYU is not very good. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I've talked to 1,000 people on this topic, and many of them think that BYU is going to struggle this season. That's not breaking news to anybody who's really paying attention, but that is probably the reason that line is sliding.
Can they go bowling? Can they get to 6? I mean, the line is 4.5. And I'll tell you what, you look at the schedule, Gordo, they have to stay clean in non-con. And that includes a really weird game to Laramie. I've been to Laramie for football games, so have you. Just prepare to have human feces thrown at your face in a plastic bag. It's the deal, right? So they have to stay clean in non-con. Southern Illinois, SMU, then Wyoming, because they have a bear of a schedule. The good news is most of the good teams they play are at Lavelle Edwards, outside of Utah, which is at Rice-Eccles. I look at the schedule, and I can't in good faith say that I see 6. Do you think they can at least go bowling?
No, I don't think they will. And look, I'm not dogging the Cougars. I just am going off of what I've seen and what I've heard from people. The most optimistic person I talked to down there was Kalani Sitake, and what would you expect from your head coach? He's not going to – I mean, I talked to him for an hour straight, Spence, me and him, one-on-one, and he was way more optimistic than anyone else I had talked with. And I know Kalani. I know when he's BSing me, he really believes what he's saying. They could surprise, but I don't expect them to make a bowl. If they make a bowl this season with the schedule they have, I will salute and be shocked at the same time. I don't think they'll do that.
All right, finally, before I set you loose, I don't know if you have a pulse on what we're expecting from our good friends up in Logan as Utah State will get rolling as well. It's just been it's a tough topic to cover because I feel like based off of the reporting of the Salt Lake Tribune and others, there was a cultural problem up there that permeated throughout the campus up in Logan for a number of years. I can't speak to whether or not Jerry Bovee is guilty of what he's accused of. I thought what Blake Anderson was, I guess I'll say, caught on tape saying was very uncouth, to put it lightly. But now you have a new regime and Coach Dreiling, who was informed that he's now the head man while he was on vacation with his wife in Dublin, and a transfer quarterback from Iowa. Some good players still. They're picked to finish mid-table in the Mountain West Conference, but any expectations or any idea of what we could potentially see from Utah State?
Utah State has always had good athletes, just not enough of them in most years. But they do have some high points as far as athleticism goes. As far as the coaching situation, that thing's a mess in so many ways. And if that can be smoothed out, then more power to the coaching staff that's stepping in to get that job done. But, I talked after that whole thing broke. Jerry Bovee called me, and we had a conversation about what happened. And he claimed he did the right things, and that there's others have told me that there's real pushback against the school president and the AD up there. And so when you have that going on, it's almost like there are people who are longtime Aggie fans who are ticked off at the administrators for trying to right a wrong that they don't think exists. And others think that, as you mentioned, that there have been these wrongs that needed to be rearranged. And so what's the truth? I mean, what's the attitude of the team as a whole? I don't know. I mean, either that team will rally and rally hard, or else it will struggle and struggle hard.
I lied. I have one more for you because I forgot that I read what you wrote about Deion Sanders and the University of Colorado banning a reporter from asking questions, Sean Keeler from the Denver Post. And I've heard some of the interactions back and forth. And this does reek of Deion, who, as Sean has pointed out, who presents himself as somebody full of confidence and bravado, really acting like a coward, in my opinion. Now, I'm not anti-Deion like some people, and I believe that Colorado as a community has benefited greatly from his presence. Our friend Chris Camerani has written about this. But if memory serves me correctly, Gordo, you may or may not, at times, have been either outright banned or gently encouraged to go find something else to do with your time while showing up at a press conference. So you have some experience here. Before I set you loose on a Friday, what do you make of the situation where we find ourselves down in Boulder?
Yeah, I've been told to go do anatomically impossible things to myself, by folks. But no, this isn't the way to go, Spence. As you mentioned, I wrote about it. I've experienced it. It almost never turns out well for the institution that is doing this. And you mentioned Deion, a confident man, a man who presents himself as being, the epitome of confidence. And for him to react this way, and look, if Deion doesn't want to talk to this writer, this columnist, then okay. I mean, he's got it written in his contract that he doesn't have to answer questions from certain people if he doesn't want to. But to ban the guy from asking questions of anyone inside the program, it's just an overreaction. It's kind of silly, and it does not reek of confidence. It reeks of the opposite of that. So, I mean, but I'm biased. I mean, I admit it up front. I mean, this is what I've done for 45 years. And when people start to put limits on guys or tell them what they can or can't do or to ban them, it's never a good idea. And it usually ends up backfiring on whatever the institution is that's trying to pull that stuff off. I mean, let's all be truthful and confident and move forward. And if you don't like what someone writes or says, as you know, Spence, then okay, then disagree with that person, but don't ban them. I mean, what does that really accomplish? It's just kind of you're going to allow them in and embrace them and welcome them at every turn as long as you say things that we agree with. I mean, that's not the way America works.
All right, Gordo. Well, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. I appreciate the time. All the best, and we'll chat next week, okay?
All right, Spence. Thanks.
All right, Gordon Monson, brought to you by Big O Tires. Get our healthy car special for $59.95, which includes a conventional oil change, alignment check, brake check, tire rotation, and more. We know tires and service can be an unexpected expense, so Big O Tires wants to make sure you have financing options to keep your vehicle in tip-top shape. No credit needed financing options to fit any budget and any situation. Stop into any of the 50 locally owned and operated locations in Utah or schedule an appointment online. Visit BigOTires.com to find a location near you. All right, we're out and about today. We're actually outside, and it's lovely. It's a nice Friday afternoon. We find ourselves up in Ogden at Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road. pizza, sodas if you'd like. They're giving away a really nice cooler. It's their Labor Day tent sale. And Arby stops by once again. Arby, how are you, buddy?
Doing well, man. The beautiful weather is upon us, and it's feeling great out here.
So the Labor Day tent sale is like your creme de la creme. It's like one of the biggest events that you guys do. Let's
Every
hear.
single
yeah,
year.
let's hear about it.
So we lower all the prices. Everything's clearly marked. There's no gimmicks. There's no games. We got low APRs, awesome rebates. We are willing and dealing. We've got a big new car goal, and that means new Kias. We have an emphasis on those. So we're making deals happen to meet that goal.
Is it just me, or has Kia stepped their game up over the past couple of years? Like, I see Kias on the road, so I'll see a car. I'm like, that looks like a Mercedes or something. It'll drive by me, and it says Kia. It feels like Kia's really stepped up.
They really have. So our secret sauce was Peter Schrager. We actually sniped him from BMW. He's come over and really put Kia on the map.
Okay, that's what it is. I knew something was going on. I'm like, these Kias look different, man. They look like they're great cars. All right, pizza, soda, water, so we're hooking people up. Also a chance to win a really nice cooler. Let's hear about that.
Nice cooler. That's a 75-quart Lone Mountain. They are great coolers. It gives you all the accessories you need. They're bear-proof. I mentioned that earlier. You get the basket, the cutting board, the bottle opener, the whole 9 yards. We're actually be giving that away about $520.
And what's the best way for people to come win that?
All they got to do is come down here, throw their name in the box. There's no purchase necessary. We'd like to sell you something. We've got these great deals, but come on down and just hang out with us. We're having a good time.
Yeah, party down here in Ogden, 770 West Riverdale Road here at Wasatch Front Kia. Vehicles priced to move. Arby, you're the man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, we got 2 hours down. We have 2 hours to go on the program on this Friday. Your 4 o'clock hour is going to be Max Brown and Chris Camerati. More college football on the other side. So keep it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. All right, we got 2 hours down, 2 hours to go on the program. 4 hours on this lovely Friday afternoon, live today in Ogden. Out of Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road. It's their Labor Day tent sale. We're here pretty much every year. I got to give a shout-out to Jeff. My man rolls up every time I'm here in Ogden. So come on by and say hi. Chris Comrani from The Athletic will join us. We'll talk more college football. But joining me now, one of my favorites to break it all down on the college football side, Max Brown, back on the show on a Friday. Max, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Spence? Good to be back in football season mode with you.
No doubt, no doubt. So give me the update. Give me the Max Brown life update. What are you doing? Where can we find you? What's going on with you?
Yeah, the Max Brown update. When one door closes with the Pac-12 network, another one opens with the CW. I'll be their lead college football analyst this fall, calling primarily this ACC package they have, or we have. Right now I find myself in Corvallis, Oregon. They also have a relationship with the Pac-12 or the Pac-2, so I'll be calling Oregon State's game tomorrow against Idaho State, but fired up, calling games, doing a bunch of content on all the other platforms, and it'll be a fun fall.
That's great. That's great. So let me ask you this, because we've had a lot of our former Pac-12 friends on the show who have moved on. Where are you at with the radical acceptance, the 6 stages of grief? Have we properly digested and moved on with our lives? Because I think I'm still working through it, Max.
I'm still working through it, too. Yeah, I forget the exact stages, but I don't know if I'm at full acceptance yet. I know it's you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, as they say, but I'm still bummed it all happened. I wish it was the other way, or the old school way. Not going to live in the past, but what I can say is I'll certainly be always pulling and advocating for the West Coast schools. I think the Pac-12 brand and the perception that there was lesser football on the West Coast, at least when you compare it to Big 12 football and ACC football, I think was misjudged. I think it was more of a marketing mishap than anything. Look no further than where the Pac-12 was last year, and I hope that Utah and the Big 12 and obviously the Arizona schools and then obviously the 4 schools going to the Big 10, they show out. And I'm doing, like I said, a lot of ACC coverage. No one is talking about Stanford and Cal, and I hope Troy Taylor and Justin Wilcox's bunch, show out this season.
So let's do some Utah takeaways, and let's do some Cam Rising takeaways. As a guy who played the position, I've always been fascinated with your quarterback breakdowns, and it was 606 days between games, which that's so crazy to wrap your mind around. And I've been talking about the game last night, Max, through the prism of trying to accurately decide what was real and what wasn't, because SUU, due respect, Utah was about a 40-point favorite. And Cam had a lot of wide-open throws with Brandt and Tejon Stanley, a couple of swing routes. But nonetheless, it was just great to see him under center, 7th year in college football. Two-part question, your takeaways. What's real as far as what we saw last night? What can we actually learn from it? And what should we hope that does for him to catapult Utah and their quarterback the rest of the way?
Yeah, and I'll be fully transparent. I was on an airplane during the game, so I only caught some of the highlights. So I'll keep my answer high level. I think the biggest takeaway is any sort of concern that, hey, where is Cam Rising in terms of anytime you have an injury where you miss an entire season, like mentally you wonder where he's at, and there was no concern at all from what I saw about any sort of rust in any capacity coming back. And then I also think every single season there's always teams with high expectations that lay an egg week 1, or a team, I know it was lesser competition, but still you see it every single year of, it's not as clean as you would hope it to be, or you don't see the pieces that you hoped you were going to see, or it's closer in the second half, that kind of thing. And there was none of that from Utah. It's why I think the Big 12 is Utah's conference to lose, and I think those expectations are fair given what Utah has coming back.
So, and I'm quite sure you haven't been breaking down Isaac Wilson tape either, so I'm just going to ask you more of a big-picture general question, because it was a little bit unusual for a few reasons to hear that Isaac had received the backup job. Number one, Coach Witt does not usually announce those positional decisions as early as he did in camp. Now, Isaac had an excellent spring camp. We saw him in the spring game. He looked good. But the other reason it was a little bit surprising, number two, is Brandon Rose has experience in the program, and they add Sam Heward, who once upon a time was a top 5 recruit out of high school and played at UW. But Isaac gets it as a true freshman. Now, we're always hoping for full health, and if Utah's going to win the Big 12, I think it's safe to say 7 has to be under center. But what do you make of a true freshman getting this backup job for Cam Rising in the case that we have to deal with what we dealt with a year ago?
Yeah, 2 things. One, I think it speaks to, again, and I know we've been saying this for a few years, but the higher clip recruiting-wise that Utah is able to access, even compared to where they were, 5-7 years ago. And even taking it back further, 10 years ago. I mean, I remember the days when I was playing versus Utah, and there was always concern about, the quarterback position being the weak link. And those days are way behind Utah, and I think, it speaks to the depth that quarterback room has. And I also think it speaks to, in the day and age where, I'm coming out of a coaches meeting just a half hour ago with Oregon State, and they have 3 quarterbacks they like, and they are aware that in some capacity they need to tread lightly in the transfer portal dynamic of how you're communicating to these guys. And the reality of being a coach or an offensive coordinator in today's day and age is you need to keep the quarterbacks on your roster feeling encouraged that there's a path for them to play. And if you're given a true freshman that backup job, then anyone who's older than that's looking around like, what's going on? I say that in the context for Utah, where the program they've built and the credibility that Kyle Whittingham has, I think he's able to make a decision like that and not be concerned that guys are going to be hemming and hawing, because he's got that credibility, and I think that's what Utah wants to be. They want to be a transparent, best man plays. Whatever you do on the field, that's what's going to come through on the depth chart. I think that type of mentality is why Utah's had sustained success. But I say that in the context of I don't think every program can get away with it, but given the familiarity and the credibility that Kyle Whittingham has, he's a head coach that can.
So I want to tell you, just because you weren't able to catch it, last night on the ESPN broadcast, they were able – so they met with Coach Witt. As you know, you're a broadcaster. That's what you do. You meet with the coaches. And, Max, you're a former college guy, and you followed the landscape of college football. And now oftentimes these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids you're talking to come play for you have Instagram followings, have TikTok followings, have massive social media brands. NIL deals probably have already, put them in a spot where they're going to, pad their pockets with a ton of cash. And the line that Coach Witt is using for these recruits, according to ESPN, is the following, quote, "You will become us. We will not become you," end quote, which feels like a perfect Kyle Whittingham saying. I wonder, as a former athlete who went through the recruiting process, your thoughts on that phrase and how you think it lands with these young players.
I love it. I think the reality of that phrase is it's going to phase out a portion of recruits that doesn't land well. But that's why Utah's great, is those aren't the recruits they go after. They go after the guys that it's not about the name on the back of the jersey. It's about the program name on the front. And I think that type of phrase will whittle out some of those higher-end recruits that are more ego guys. And I also think there's households and parents where that phrase will land and they will want to send their son to a program that prides himself on that, because life isn't always about you, even in the social media world that we land in. So I love it. And again, I think it goes back to my previous point of there are not a lot of head coaches around college football that can get away with saying that. And Kyle Whittingham has earned the right to say that. If you're a new coach in a brand new program in this transfer portal era, there is no way you can say that comment, because your boosters and your athletic directors are going to say, what? We gotta win the transfer portal. That's the nature of the beast. We got to be inclusive. We got to be attracting these recruits. Utah's in a really unique scenario where the culture, even with all the movement, is so ingrained in the most healthy way possible that I think that's a winning culture. And I think there's a lot of head coaches that probably listen to that statement and are envious that they might feel like they don't have the footing to take that stance when they wish they could.
One more Utah football question, then I have some thought. I want some thoughts from you, Max, on some of the other schools that have moved on from the Pac-12 into new homes. Ultimately, part of me thought that when Kyle decided he was done coaching, Mark Harlan, the new athlete, well, he's not new anymore, but he did not hire Kyle. He came here, I think it's 6-7 years ago now, and Mark's a really sharp guy, friend of the show. I thought potentially he might open it up to a national search because the Utah head coaching job is not what it was when Kyle took it. And we know what they pay Kyle. They pay Kyle on par with the best coaches in college football because he is one of the best coaches in college football. But the decision was made, once again, to reinstate the moniker coach in waiting to Morgan Scalley's employment agreement after it was stripped from Morgan as a result of some really unfortunate text messages that, they came to light. Morgan handled it. He was punished, and they hit him pretty good. And now he's earned it back. So they're going to choose continuity over opening it up to a national search. We had Eric Weddle on earlier, and Eric basically said the alumni wouldn't allow Mark to go outside of the family, which I thought was kind of funny. But what's your take on where we find ourselves? There are some who believe that Kyle really wants a chance to play in a CFP before he's done, and Utah might do that this year. I don't know if he's done this year. Some believe that, but it's going to be Morgan whenever he is done. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and it's a fascinating topic. I think when I first heard the news of the coach in waiting, my first reaction was like, oh, that's weird. Like, yeah, kind of what you're alluding to a little bit of, what's the point of doing that? And then I heard Kyle's answer of, from a recruiting standpoint, of recruits want to have security of knowing who their head coach is beyond just 1 or 2 seasons. And that was a great answer, and I think to that extent, I like the decision. I think the decision makes sense. Where I think things could get murky a little bit is, from an outsider's perspective, given that you have Cam Rising back this season, and I know he has like another season of eligibility or whatever, but there's a lot of veteran pieces on this team, and it feels like there's that last dance Chicago Bulls type of energy to this team with Cam Rising at Utah type of deal, where this could be the season where Kyle Whittingham, if he makes the playoff and potentially has success within the playoff, decides to hang it up from here. But if he decides to hang around for next season, and then we're kind of sitting here being like, well, what exactly does this coach in waiting mean? And people are going to be more eager to lock in a timeline. And Morgan Scalley, he's going to want to keep developing his career, and he's probably not just going to hang out forever. I don't know exactly how he's wired. That, to me, is where it could get this time next year. That's where, if nothing changes and it's still coach in waiting, that's where it could get murky. But I also think, Morgan Scalley, he's a Utah guy, and maybe he is wired where I don't care if it's 1, 2, 3, 5 years. My quality of life in Salt Lake City is good enough, and I want to be a head coach that I'll wait here and take over a program that has a phenomenal foundation. I think that can be true, but a lot of moving pieces there that'll be interesting to track this season.
So last night, after I got home from the Utah game, I had recorded Colorado and North Dakota State. I'm not going to tell you that I stayed up until 2 to watch the whole thing, but I did catch a good portion of it. And, Max, the interesting thing about Coach Prime, about Deion, is, we were down at Big 12 Media Days. The whole thing was weird, by the way. After going to Pac-12 Media Days for a decade, like being at Big 12 Media Days, I was glad they put it in Vegas because it's kind of in our backyard. But throughout the course of being there, coaches would take the podium and nobody would blink. The radio guys like us would keep doing the show. The TV guys would set up to do their hits. And then, as you walk into Allegiant Stadium, the Big 12 had about 6 showgirls set up to greet you Vegas style. And as I walked past the group, I overheard one of them say, I don't know anything about football, but I just heard Deion Sanders might be here today. And then Deion takes the podium, and Max, everybody stopped what they were doing to listen to him for 25 minutes. It's one of those, like, undefinable, almost famous Jeff Beebe lines, like, that's the mother bleeping buzz. That's the buzz. You can't define it, but he has it. And sometimes I feel like the litany of attention that's on, like, First Take led their show with Colorado and North Dakota State last night. It was the first thing they talked about. Baseball playoffs, pro football, they went there right away. Sometimes I feel like the noise makes it hard to actually analyze who Shedeur is, but you're the guy for this as the kind of the quarterback guru that can kind of break it down. He has tremendous arm strength, and he makes chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what. Colorado survives. But what's your take on what we could see from Colorado this year and who Shedeur Sanders is as a quarterback?
Yeah, the whole Deion dynamic is fascinating, too, because it feels like he's going to have a huge decision on his hands in November, regardless of what happens this season, because this will likely be the last season that he has the ability to coach his sons, and is Colorado not as attractive of a job without his sons there? If he wins and has tons of success, well, then you better believe the SEC, those types of schools, the Florida-adjacent schools that are in his backyard could come calling him. And if he doesn't have success, well, then that's a whole other conversation and chatter and hot seat. So that's something I'm fascinated to talk about or track and follow as the season progresses. But with Shedeur, I think this time last year, middle of the season last year, I was slow to roll because it was hard for me to unpack how much of it is just the hype and the swagger and his last name versus how much is like, all right, no, this could really be, the Raiders' next franchise quarterback or something like that. So I was slow to roll. But last night, I mean, there are a lot of NFL starting quarterback, first-round type of talent moments. And I think they go a little bit subtle, and I'm actually working on a little breakdown about it. But it's not only just the arm strength. It's not only just the confidence. But I think he's tough. I think he's gritty. I think his legs are a legitimate factor that it's not like he's relying on dual-threat designed runs. No, that mobility that he's shown in the pocket, I think that translates to the National Football League. I think he makes anticipation throws look easy that are not easy. He just makes it look second nature, and he's confident, which if I'm an NFL GM, that's what I want my quarterback to be. So I think Shedeur showed last night why he should be in the top tier of potential NFL first round or top overall pick quarterbacks for next year's NFL draft. There's other guys I like too, and I'll be watching for sure. But he's a stud, and I think he shows time and time again why he has earned the right to be in that conversation.
You just mentioned something that reminded me. I wanted to ask you one more question about Rising. Coach Witt, prior to, it was game week, so it was on Monday of this week, he said that they were going to be very judicious with the QB run game, and they've encouraged Cam to be very, very selective when he takes off. I mean, we all saw what happened last year. It wasn't just QB1, it was QB2, and at times they were down to QB3, 4, and 5. So we know that if Utah wants to win the Big 12, 7 has to be under center. We saw him tuck and run 4 or 5 different times last night. We saw him take hits 2 or 3 different times last night. I'm curious, as a guy who played the position, is it possible to rewire your brain to help you understand that when fight or flight appears, you throw it out of bounds or you get down? Because it's just kind of what makes Cam who he is. He's a great thrower. He's accurate. He's got a strong arm, all that stuff. But the snapshot moments against USC where I felt he had his head taken off. Like, Cameron Rising out of the pocket is must-see TV. It's exciting. Can you really rewire a quarterback's brain to train him to get down instead of getting in danger?
Can you do it? Yes. I think you can do it. Is Cam Rising the type of quarterback that falls into that bucket, to your point? I'm not so sure because his style is so unique. I mean, we've talked about it a few times over the past couple of years on your show. It's like no one really considers – like if you were putting quarterbacks into 2 buckets, pocket passer or dual threat, no one's really putting Cam Rising clearly in the dual threat quarterback category, and no one's really putting him clearly in the pocket passer quarterback. And that's what makes him great. That's what makes him unique. He has that unique style, especially, whenever this conversation comes up, I just think of like 3rd and 5, and you're facing Cam Rising, you're a defensive coordinator, you hate it because you don't know what to expect. If he's a dual threat quarterback, well, then you're expecting him to run, and you design a defense that way. Well, Cam's a much better passer than just kind of putting him in that bucket. Well, his legs are still a factor, but they're not so much of a factor where you need to change your defensive structure around it. That's what makes him unique. So I think you can do it. I think it's tough for a quarterback with Cam's style where he's had so much success, ad-libbing with his legs so often on critical downs.
All right, buddy, before I set you loose, I wanted to ask you about one more team and one more quarterback because it does feel like there are a lot of very smart people that believe Arizona has a shot here because the Big 12 is so close together and there's so much parity. And, with the coaching change, I figured we'd see Noah Fafita in a UW uniform, but we won't. We'll see him with Arizona. What do you make of where we could find ourselves with Arizona? Utah plays them, so this is an opponent that we need to know about. You've watched them play, former Pac-12 school. What's your take before I set you loose?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was high on Arizona They were my dark horse team this time last year before they started beating people. And I looked around and I said, if they can stay healthy, their starters, especially at key positions, can, match up with anyone in the Pac-12. If they can't stay healthy, then they're in trouble. And I think that same dynamic exists this year for Arizona. If they can stay healthy, they're fine. I worry about their depth, especially in a Big 12 where it's going to be competitive. I think people are going to beat each other. I do think it's Utah's conference to lose, but I think it's going to be competitive late in the games. And, knock on wood, if they lose one of those key pieces, I think that could really change the entire identity of their offense versus Utah. Obviously, if you lose a Cam Rising, that's a different question. But I trust Utah's depth more if something were to happen. So, to me, that's a critical component for Arizona. I do agree with the national narrative that they have the best receiver in college football in Tatero McMillan. Fafita's a baller. They got a stud NFL offensive lineman in Jonas Savanaia up there. They just got to stay healthy to contend for a Big 12 title at the end of the year.
Max, you're the man. Appreciate the time. Best of luck on the broadcast all year. And, of course, we'll be chatting with you quite a bit. So have a great weekend, okay?
Appreciate it, Spence. Thanks.
All right, Max Brown. Get him on Twitter. @MaxBrown4 is where you find him. A number of years with the Pac-12 Network, now with our friends at the CW. He's very funny on, TikTok, stuff like that, a lot of quarterback breakdowns. So get him on TikTok as well. All right, we're live today up here with our good friends in Ogden. It's Wasatch Front Kia. It's 770 West Riverdale Road. It's their Labor Day tent sale, so you can't miss us. We are right out front. We're actually outside. Typically we're inside, but we're outside today. We have free pizza. We have free soda. We have free water. And they're giving away an awesome cooler. All you have to do is enter to win. In their store. So 770 West Riverdale Road here in Ogden. Put that address in your GPS and come on by and say hi. All right, let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Pros. Hopefully you're locked in by now, but if you're not, it's not too late, but it's probably time that you pick up the phone and dial 801-424-DISH. You can save money. You can get all your sports in one place. You can get upgraded equipment, you name it, at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Spence, thanks so much. That was a great game, but, I think I should really hit on this in a remote. Listen, if you are, have these other TVs that don't have access to these streaming apps, Dish is your solution because the way the Hopper's set up, we can get you taken care of. And this is kind of the reality we're going to run into is majority of everything we can offer through the Dish system, but there are going to be games once in a while that you'll need to have an app. And that's the cool thing is inside of the Dish system, you can access all of this. So you can watch it on your TV, have access at mobile. You can watch everything you want in one place with the Hopper system. Call us up. Take advantage of this awesome offer. We'll get you set up and installed as early as next day. We've got a fantastic promotion where the price is guaranteed. Huge credits for 2 years, and the price won't change. Plus, we'll throw in the multi-sports pack, which includes a ton of good channels. My favorite, the NFL Red Zone. We're, a week away until that will be up and running. So call us today. Get set up. Get the best deal out there, guaranteed, and we'll have you installed right away. Just call us 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. As I referenced, Wasatch Front Kia Labor Day tent sale. My guy Arby stops by once again here in the 4 o'clock hour. All right, Arby, Labor Day tent sale. It's like the biggest event you guys do all year.
Every year.
What do you want our listeners to know?
Man, this is the time of the year where we know summer's coming to an end. People are back in school. Everybody's kind of getting back in the routine of things. No better way to celebrate than with a new car. So we lower the prices on all these cars. We throw the prices in windows so you can come by and browse, see what the prices are. We got budgets of all sizes. I've got beginner cars all the way up to family vehicles. So we're here to take care of you. We're having fun, man.
And as we talked about last segment, Kia's really stepped up. And I've noticed it driving around. And my brother and his wife, they just bought a new Kia a couple weeks ago. And you see Kias around town, you're like, that looks like a BMW or something. So talk about how Kia's kind of up their game.
Yeah, so in 2009, Kia hired Peter Schreier. They convinced him to come to Kia. They said, come over here. We'll let you do whatever you want. His story and his vision kind of brought Kia up from a little grocery getter to we've won World Car of the Year with several different models.
Nice.
Telluride has swept the board on awards, most awarded vehicle in history. And Kia just really nailed it on the head. So Peter Schreier, huge shout out to that guy.
So let's talk financing. Everybody has a different budget. It's fall, so maybe you just bought a home, sold a home, you have kids in school. How do you guys help people that are listening right now that aren't sure if they can afford a car?
Well, we take care of all credit situations. We work with all our local lenders. Because we're a small family store, we don't have that corporate vibe. We don't have any major contracts or anything. So these guys work with us. They take care of us because they know that we take care of our community. I've got rates as low as 0.9 on some of these cars. So
Very
it's definitely
nice.
worth it to come down and take a peek.
Before I set you loose, when I showed up, I said, "What are you giving away today?" You said a cooler, and I said, "What kind?" Then I looked it up. It's not just any cooler. You guys are giving away a pretty dope cooler.
It's kind of the Grand Poobah. They tell us bear proof. It's a red, white, and blue limited edition. It's got a cutting board built in, a beer bottle opener built in. You get a basket so you can keep things separated. Keeps it nice and cold for up to a week, it says.
Right on. And what's the best way for people to enter to win?
Just come on down, say hi to us, throw your name in the basket. We're going to be drawn in a little less than an hour, so running out of time.
All right, man. Great to see you. We'll chat again, okay?
Thanks, bud.
Come on by. Enter to win that cooler. We've got hot and ready Little Caesars pizza. We've got sodas and water if you're hungry on this Friday. It's really easy to find. Put that address in your GPS and follow it to 770 West Riverdale Road here in Ogden. It is the Wasatch Front Kia Labor Day tent sale. They do it every single year. All right, Chris Kamrani stops by. Coming up next from the Athletics, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, live today, Wasatch Front Kia. It is their Labor Day tent sale. They do it every year. 770 West Riverdale Road up here in Ogden. We've got pizza, we've got soda, we've got water. We're giving away a cooler. All you have to do is enter to win. So come on by, 770 West Riverdale Road up here in Ogden. It is Friday, which means it is Chris Kamrani time. On a beautiful Friday afternoon, CK, I know you might have some family obligations in town, but can you paint a picture? Are we in the backyard? What are we doing on this Friday?
We're up Big Cottonwood Canyon, and it's gorgeous. We're throwing rocks in the river. Well, I'm not. I'm being responsible. I'm sitting in the car, draining my car battery on behalf of the listeners of the drive. But we are up here enjoying the majesty that it presents to us.
I love hearing that. And, you know, when we were setting the schedule for the show this week, I said to Porter, game on Thursday, get me the guest that will have watched the most tape of said game by Friday afternoon. So I know you've done the rewatch probably a couple of different times because you grind. My question right out of the gates is, what about last night is real? What should Ute fans be excited about? I started the show off with, in my opinion, that was what should have happened. They showed up and they did their jobs. At least the frontline guys did. It's great to see Rising back with his 5 touchdowns, Brant Key, all the things. But what about last night should we actually, for real, be excited about?
Well, just what's real is the talent discrepancy that was on full display. And to your point, Utah did what top 15 teams should do when they are tasked with facing an FCS opponent in opening weekend at home. It was the ideal tune-up from a offensive standpoint. The defense looked good, but you know I'm always going to be a realist, and I think the fact that Utah could potentially lose one starter and one very important rotational player after just one game against an FCS opponent, that does leave kind of a damper on the night last night. I know people are stoked about the Brant Keithy revenge tour. I know that, Cam broke his own career high with 5 passing touchdowns and did it all in one half against the guys from Cedar City. But, football's a violent game, and if Utah is without Kenton Johnson and Aliki Bimahi for the duration of the season, or at least for a very long time, that's a pretty big dent in a defense that's good, but could potentially be losing 2 key contributors.
Yeah, obviously, in order for Utah to do anything ultra special this year, full health is going to be paramount, and no one gets full health, but as close to it as possible certainly would be beneficial. We don't need to do a ton on QB2, but we did see Isaac last night for the first time. And ultimately, it's probably safe to say that's the stiffest competition Isaac Wilson has ever played against. Now, he plays against the Utah defense in practice, of course, who certainly 10 times better than what SUU presents. But mixed results as far as game 1 goes for QB2. It's not the biggest storyline, but I wonder what the CK take is on what we saw in a half of football from Isaac Wilson.
Well, even Kyle Whittingham himself said it was probably a little unfair to throw Isaac in so early, considering the game was, well out of hand at the end of the second quarter, and they don't want to take any risks with Cam. But you saw a true freshman quarterback who had flashes and then had struggles. That's going to happen. But I think Utah's offensive staff and Kyle Whittingham understand the upside that they believe Isaac has, and that's the reason why he beat out an incumbent in Brandon Rose and a former once upon a time 5-star recruit in Sam Heward for that backup position behind Cam. It's just a fascinating world to believe that Isaac Wilson, who's the little brother of Zach Wilson, former BYU star quarterback, was throwing a touchdown to Caleb Lohner, former BYU basketball player who is now wearing red in the south end zone of Rice-Eccles Stadium. Crazy things, are afoot in games like last night when you can comfortably put a remarkably sized distance between yourselves and the FCS opponent. So that was really fascinating to see, because that's a big brain explosion moment for the intersection of Utah and BYU fandom.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was. And, obviously there are plenty of great former basketball players that have gone on to play tight end at the highest of levels. I was surprised that Caleb, it wasn't just the touchdown he caught from Isaac, CK. I mean, he played a lot. He was in the first half, and I thought he acclimated himself pretty well. I wonder if you have any thoughts on ultimately, it's crazy he's never played football. College basketball, Utah, BYU, Baylor, he's never played football. I wonder what you think Caleb can do long term if Coach Witt apparently believes in him already the way that he does.
Well, I mean, I think that's why games like last night behooves Utah so much, is that once you can get that comfortable distance between yourself and the opponent, you can see what you have further on down the line. And Caleb Lohner is a perfect example of that. I think you could make an argument that Utah's tight end room is one of the deepest on the roster, so he does have quite an uphill climb, but he also doesn't have any pressure on him because he has guys like Keithy and King and those other folks ahead of him. But listen, Utah is historically known for taking guys who were either, one position and had never played another and putting them in a new spot and helping them thrive. This is not new for Utah. During their time in the Mountain West and even the Pac-12, that's what they've been able to do. It's their bread and butter, is projecting where guys can play. Now, I don't know if anybody ever saw Caleb Lohner projecting as a tight end at the Power 4 level, but clearly Utah saw something and brought him in, and we'll see what he is able to contribute once Utah gets into the meat of the schedule, because once you get into the meat of the schedule, you play tougher teams, better defenses, and you're going to have to rely on your better players.
So I had Monson on earlier. We were talking about the fact that in the not-so-distant future, games like this will go away. I don't have a problem with that. I'm always like college football needs bigger brand names and bigger, better games every weekend. It's what the NFL has. However, on the other side of it, there are the little guys who will be left without these sizable paychecks they receive as a result of driving a couple of hours up north to get their heads kicked in. What's the take? What's the CK take on the dynamic of these games and whether or not you're a fan of them going away probably in college football sometime soon?
Well, I think so many powers that be have Appalachian State PTSD going back to the historic upset when App State beat Michigan in the Big House, I think in 2007. And ever since then, you've seen some FCS teams come in and catch some Power 4 teams by surprise. I'm with you. I think, like, if we're talking about the cream of the crop FCS, if we're talking about North Dakota State getting a draw against Colorado or even getting to face a team like Utah week 1 or week 2 or week 3, I'm in for it, because teams like that aren't going to get railroaded, and teams like that are very well coached generally and have a chance to make it a very intriguing game. I think it's one of those things for me where, like, if you're an FCS school, you kind of have to earn it going forward, and I think that's going to be the case. If you ask my honest opinion, it's like I do think athletic directors will maybe be more apt to throw a bone to teams that have a decent recent track record, a good traveling fan base, and ultimately, if they're going to take a risk to put an FCS team on their schedule that could really throw everything up in the air, you want to schedule a team that can, at the end of the season, look like a quality win, even though it might not be dubbed a quote-unquote quality win along the lines of other Power 4 opponents, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. Alex Smith inducted into the Ring of Honor last night, CK, a new thing Utah football is doing. Eric Weddle joined the show earlier and said that, because Weddle will be in there at some point, and so I tongue-in-cheek asked him if he had an announcement to make on the show, and said that he wants the old-school guys to get a little love. Gordon Monson earlier today broke, I guess, for me, he broke the story at least, that it came down to Ron McBride and Alex Smith, and they elected to go with Alex first, so I guess that means Ronnie Mack should be next. What are your thoughts on this dynamic?
Well, you're coming to the guy that knows a whole lot about the history and prestige of Utah football, so I appreciate you asking.
No, I know. That's why I asked the question.
Well, I know you're in Ogden, and I know you're having a great Friday, so we're going to get into it.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's at least a handful of players from that '04 team that deserve to be in the mix. And then if you go further back, you can talk about program builders like Ron McBride. And then you talk about the Scott Mitchells, the Jamal Andersons, the Dyson brothers, Luther Ellis, who was on staff. I mean, I think it helps having a name that carries a lot of weight, like Alex's does, as kind of the inaugural inductee, because he did something at the school that's never happened before, being a number 1 overall NFL draft pick, and was part of that Fiesta Bowl team. I think it's just kind of a next step in the evolution of the athletic department, because I think a lot of other schools around the country have this Ring of Honor or Hall of Fame or what have you. And for Utah to induct Alex, because his story is so unique. I mean, I think, so many people have resonated with him in recent years, especially with his battle for his leg and his life, and, the illness that his kid's dealing with. And just, he's a guy, and now he's a forward-facing media member now. He works for ESPN. He's part of Monday Night Countdown. So I think it's an ideal next step in the evolution of the athletic department at BYU. How does that sound? Is that good?
It's perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for. That's the dopamine hit I need in the 4 o'clock hour on a Friday, Chris, so good job. All right, Colorado survived last night. I came home from the game, and you know me, of course, everything was recorded, so I'm digging into tape, watching the game, and you spent some time in Boulder. I wonder what you make of where we find ourselves with Colorado. Utah will see them in Boulder, getting off to a win, at least. North Dakota State, one of the best FCS teams in the country. It's hard not to be impressed by Shedeur and Travis Hunter, man. Those two are pretty dynamic. How was the trip, and what do you make of what we could see from the Buffs coming up this year?
Well, the trip was it was a rainy, cold day. I think that was the day you guys caught me on I think it was the semifinal match between the U.S. and Serbia when you walked me through the end of the game. I was in the parking lot.
Correct.
The trip was nice. It was rainy, but I got, took the temperature once again of things in Boulder. And listen, man, Deion's still the most beloved person there. There's a reason why that town and that school have basically hitched their wagon to Deion, is because if you remember, nobody really gave a you-know-what about Colorado football for a very long time before Deion Sanders showed up. And I don't know how quote-unquote cool Colorado football has been in the last 30 years. I mean, maybe you'd have to go all the way back to the Cordell Stewart, era, which was 30-plus years ago. But to me, like the genesis of the story was, Deion does a lot of talking. He makes a lot of money. He knows how to market himself. Year 2 now is about producing. And, he's always going to have sound bites and have some fairly controversial takes and run-ins with folks. But, if he's going to be as good of a coach and a program builder as he says he is, he's got to show it. And last night, it was weird, man. Like, watching that game, you watch 2 of the best players in the country, 2 players that could conceivably go in the top 10 or the top 5 of next year's draft. And, in another world, in another multiverse, that Hail Mary at the end gets caught by North Dakota State, and they lose at home to an FCS opponent. So, once again, Colorado, through one game at least, looks like it kind of did last year. Their defense played a little better, but, they were facing one of the best FCS teams in the country. You have a guy in Travis Hunter who's doing something that we really haven't ever seen in recent memory, and Shedeur is an amazingly accurate quarterback. Watching them, it feels like, when you would create your teams on Madden or NCAA back in the day, and you would have, like, your 299 players, and everybody else is kind of middle of the road. That's what it was like watching them, because you knew that all Colorado had to do was get the ball in Shedeur's hands and have Shedeur find Travis, and they would take care of business. But the road gets tougher, man. I mean, they're going to go to Nebraska, who a lot of people think are much improved from last year, and that is a big-time rivalry for Colorado. And then they have another road game at CSU the week after before jumping into Big 12 play. So, I do think Colorado is still going to be appointment television as long as Shador and Travis are healthy, just because they're that good.
Yeah, like I said, hard not to be impressed. All right, before I set you loose, tomorrow it's BYU's turn, Southern Illinois. I know you've been smashing Saluki tape. Here's the deal, Chris. That line opened up at 19.5 and quickly moved down to 14. I felt like 3 touchdowns was about right. But you've got BYU bros in your life. I got the bros. We got the bros. And there's this underlying current of real anxiety that I feel for BYU football coming up this year. What are you expecting tomorrow night? I think it's Retzlaff. OC thinks it's Bohannon. I have no idea. But what are you expecting from BYU tomorrow night and then the rest of the year?
Well, if it moved that much, that makes me wonder if they're gonna split quarterback duties in game. I don't know if they're gonna do that or not, but yeah, man, it's a tough place to build a program nowadays for obvious reasons. I'm of the opinion that BYU fans, many of them, unfortunately, are living their present in the past and believe that the program should always be in perpetual 1984-ness, which, good for them. I just don't know if you're going to find a better coach who is equipped to handle the program the way Kalani is, considering all of the hamstringing that the university would have to go to if they're going to eventually move on from Kalani. It's just a way harder, job to do as opposed to any other school in the country. That being said, if BYU doesn't win by 3 touchdowns, that's going to be alarming for a lot of reasons. Lavelle Edwards Stadium is a notoriously tough place to play for anybody, no matter, their talent level or what their conference affiliation is. So, we talk about this all the time. You're only going to be as good as your quarterback. And BYU has to figure out who their quarterback is and if they're going to be good this year or not.
All right, we'll let you go. Enjoy the family time. Enjoy the beautiful surroundings. Have a great Labor Day weekend, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, CK.
All right, man. Enjoy that pizza.
Will do. Chris Kamrani from The Athletic does a bunch of different features. His latest is on Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffs and kind of the business effect he's had in the community. You can get him on Twitter. Doesn't tweet much, kind of like me. @Chris Kamrani is where you find him. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. We're live today here at Wasatch Front Kia. It is their Labor Day tent sale. They do it every year. It's your chance to save big on a bevy of different vehicles, some for mom, some for dad, some for the kids. It's 770 West Riverdale Road up here in Ogden. Come on by and say hi. All right, hopefully you're ready for football as far as your television watching setup. The good news is you still have about a week until pro football. The bad news is we're here with college football, but it's not too late to save money, to support local, and get brand new equipment. Your job is to dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Yeah, this is the time to call, and we've been helping so many people, and this is kind of throwing a curveball. This world has changed, and your TV viewing has to be set up so you can get access to lots of different places, and most of the content you're going to find on Dish, you'll be able to get it, no problem. But there are apps, but the cool thing is the way Dish has set the system up, like Netflix and Amazon and YouTube are just channels, and any other apps from ESPN Plus, the Paramount, it's just simple just to add right on there as needed. And all you can do is just select it and watch it right on your TV. Actually, the way the Hopper works, it'll show on every single TV in your house, so you don't have to worry about logins or passwords. It's just simple. It's there. Guys, we've got a killer promotion where you get set up for free. Installs all taken care of by us. We'll throw in multi-sports packs free for a year. You get a 2-year promotional price that gets you credits for 2 years. We guarantee the price will not change. And on top of that, you get that NFL Red Zone, and we'll have you installed as early as, can't say next day with this weekend, but we can get you installed as first of next week, and throwing dinner at JCW's on top of everything. Call us now, 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Bros. Before we catch a break for the 5 o'clock hour of the show, we welcome in my guy Arby up here at 770 West Riverdale Road, Wasatch Front Kia. Arby, it is your Labor Day tent sale. You guys do it every single year. And
every year.
There's a reason for that.
Yes.
What do you want our listeners to know?
So we drop our prices. Everything is clear and kosher. This is the biggest sale we have of the year. Everything is slashed down. And you can take a look right in the windshields and see the prices right on the cars. Compare it to anybody else. We actually want you to do that because we are the cheapest and we are the best.
And I know I keep asking you this, but I was walking past the showroom. These Tellurides, man. I mean, I think for some people, they hear Kia, they don't understand the brand and how it has evolved. Tell me about these Tellurides.
Man, the Telluride is actually a follow-up to a failed experiment Kia did in '09. They released something similar called the Borrego, and I just don't think that the world was ready for it. So they revamped it a little bit, finally tuned it, and then released that Telluride in 2020, and it has been incredible. At one point, we had waiting lists for 2 years on those cars.
Oh, wow. It's a good-looking car. So you've got minivans, SUVs for the family. But what you guys have here at Wasatch Front Kia is the ability, ultimately, to take care of every family need. Mom, dad, children, too, yeah?
Everybody down the line. We try to have a car for everybody. So if it's a first-time driver just getting something to run around to school and work, we can take care of that. Or if we need to load everybody up, we've got big old vans that'll sit the whole family in.
Last thing, financing. Everybody has different budget needs. Everybody has different budget issues. How can you help people that might be listening today that think, I'm not sure that I can afford that today?
Well, we've lowered a lot of car payments. The rates are dropping like crazy. I mentioned rates as low as 0.9 earlier, and we work with all the local credit unions and banks. So people that you're familiar with, they're willing to help out and step in and help us out, in turn help out the community.
And last thing, you told me when I showed up, we're giving away a cooler. And I was like, okay. Then I looked up the cooler. I'm like, okay, that is dope. You guys are giving away like a top-end cooler.
It's pretty gnarly. It retails like $350, I think.
Yeah.
But it has all the accessories. It's got the basket. It's got the cutting board. It's got the bottle opener. It's got everything you need. And I keep mentioning Bear Proof because that's cool.
Yeah, and just come in and enter to win, yeah?
Just throw your name in the basket. That's all you got to do. Come say hi. And we're doing that drawing in about 20 minutes.
All right.
Got a few more minutes to come on down and enter to win.
Okay, man, good to see you, all right? There's RB Wasatch Front Kia. Now the address to enter to win the cooler. And while you're here, you can grab some free pizza, some soda, some water. Check out their vehicles at a price to move. It's Wasatch Front Kia. It's 770 West Riverdale Road in Ogden. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Wrapping it up, it's the final segment of the show for both the day and the week. What a fun week that was, man. Game week for Utah football culminated in a shellacking of SUU like we thought it might last night, 49-0. Tomorrow night it's BYU's turn, Southern Illinois, down at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. BYU a 2-touchdown favorite, man. I thought it would be bigger than that, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes down. Utah State welcomes in Robert Morris. A little college football. It's actually going on right now. It's Temple and Oklahoma. Also, TCU and Stanford get going tonight. So the Big 12 slate has already started, obviously. Then we'll continue tomorrow with a big non-con game in Morgantown, West Virginia. Fox's big noon coverage has Penn State, West Virginia. OK State welcomes in South Dakota State. Cincinnati has Townsend. Iowa State has North Dakota. K-State welcomes in UT Martin. Baylor will play Tarleton State because, obviously. UNLV Houston, Abilene Christian, Texas Tech, New Mexico, Arizona. And then the late night game, FS1 style, sees Wyoming in Tempe taking on Arizona State. All right, Porter, now that we have game one behind us, do you have a relaxing weekend ahead, or is it all Baylor tape starting tonight?
Yeah, well, we'll get dialed into the tape in no time. But yeah, I'm gonna take this weekend, this long weekend, to kind of take it easy, watch and enjoy the college football more as a fan, and dial into what is an upcoming Big 12 slate for Utah, and of course, we'll be giving some attention to the Big 12 teams.
No doubt, no doubt. So it's been a fun week. It's always fun to be up here at Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road here in Ogden. But time to say goodnight, Porter. What comes our listeners' way, I guess, which would be a Tuesday show since we are off on Monday.
Yeah, enjoy your Monday off and rejoin us on a Tuesday edition of The Drive. We'll recap some Real Salt Lake from the weekend, of course, college football from the weekend, and more. Scott Mitchell drops by the program. Yogi Roth drops by. Josh Furlong, of course, right on the heels of the AP Top 25, and some RSL stuff as well on the show. So, yeah, as I mentioned, enjoy the long weekend, and we'll greet you back here on a Monday.
All right, good stuff. So that will do it for us. Special thanks to our friends up here at Wasatch Front Kia. It's their Labor Day tent sale. Stop by all weekend at 770 West Riverdale Road. Special thank you to Cynthia, my on-site tech, and, of course, Eric Weddle, Craig Bowlerjack, Gordon Monson, Max Brown, and Chris Camerani. That's a lot of good stuff. If you missed any of it and you have some free time this weekend, check out the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. It's the ESPN 700 app, and that's available in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours long, check out our podcast page, will you? It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. If you have some free time over the weekend, would appreciate it if you gave us a rating and a review on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your shows. Say nice things, give us all the stars. It actually does help. For Porter Larson, my name is Spence Checketts, saying goodnight. Have a great Labor Day weekend, guys. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other, and we'll talk to you on a Tuesday Drive. As always, you can find that right here on ESPN 700.